Hi there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another Harry. Get ready for an incredible journey as we present What If Wednesday summoned Harry through a forbidden ritual and bound their souls together. If you find our stories entertaining, a simple like and subscribe would mean everything to us. Your support motivates us to create more. Here we go. Chapter 1, Blood and Magic. The Addams family crypt smelled like home to Wednesday, musty stone, ancient decay, and the faint metallic tang of old blood stains that never quite washed away. She descended the worn spiral staircase, her footsteps echoing against centuries-old masonry as she balanced a candelabra in one hand and her great-grandmother's skeleton key in the other. Finally, she muttered, reaching the bottom step. 3 days of waiting for her family to leave for Uncle Fester's acid rain appreciation retreat in Seattle. 3 days of pretending she cared about missing it. Now she had the mansion to herself, well, except for Thing, but he could keep a secret. The door to the forbidden archives groaned as she turned the key, as if warning her to reconsider. Wednesday ignored it. She'd been planning this break-in since finding the reference to Morticia's forbidden tomes in her mother's diary. 16 years of being in Addams, and still they treated her like she couldn't handle the family's darkest secrets. Please, she scoffed, stepping into the small octagonal room lined with bookshelves. I was performing autopsies on roadkill at 7. The air felt heavy, charged with old magic and older warnings. Wednesday's black eyes scanned the shelves methodically until they landed on a book bound in what appeared to be human skin. Its spine bore no title, just a symbol, 2 crescent moons facing each other with a dagger between them. There you are. Her pale fingers reached for it without hesitation. The book felt warm, almost alive. When she pulled it from the shelf, dust scattered in the candlelight like tiny ghosts fleeing judgment. Wednesday tucked the book under her arm and retraced her steps, locking the crypt behind her. Back in her bedroom, she cleared her desk of homework, advanced chemistry could wait, and placed the grimoire carefully in the center. Let's see what they've been hiding from me, she whispered, opening the cover. The pages were yellowed, filled with handwritten text in various languages and illustrations that seemed to move if you looked at them too long. Wednesday felt her heart quicken, a rare sensation for someone who prided herself on remaining clinically detached from everything. Hours passed as she translated sections from Latin, ancient Greek, and something that might have been Sumerian. The candles burned down to stubs as night deepened outside her window. Boring, predictable, did that one last summer. She muttered, flipping through curses and hexes that any amateur witch could manage. Then, near the back of the book, a page caught her eye. Unlike the others, this one was written in blood that somehow remained red and glistening despite its obvious age. The binding of souls across realms, she translated slowly, her fingers tracing the words. To call forth a perfect magical complement from beyond the veil of worlds. Wednesday sat back, a rare smile tugging at her lips. Now this was interesting. Not just another spell to make someone's teeth fall out or their skin turn inside out, this was magic that crossed dimensions. The ritual required specific ingredients: blood of the summoner, bones of a hanged man ground to dust, belladonna harvested at midnight, and something called essence of the void. The most crucial element was timing. It had to be performed during a blood moon eclipse, when the barriers between realities thinned. Wednesday checked her lunar calendar. The next blood moon was tomorrow night. Perfect, she said, already mentally cataloging where she'd find each ingredient. The hanged man's bones were easy, Great Uncle Balthazar's remains were in the attic. Belladonna grew in the garden. Essence of the void was trickier, but after more translation, she realized it referred to water from a place where someone had vanished without trace. Pugsley had made their swimming teacher disappear in the school pool last year. That should work. The next evening, Wednesday stood in the center of the Addams family graveyard, a circle of black candles surrounding her. She'd drawn the required symbols in chalk mixed with her own blood, their lines precise against the dark soil. The ingredients sat in her grandmother's bronze cauldron, waiting for the final elements. The moon hung full and heavy above her, already beginning its slide into shadow. As she watched, the first hint of red touched its edge. Time to begin. Wednesday pulled a silver knife from her boot and sliced her palm without flinching. Blood welled, dark against her pale skin, and she let it drip into the cauldron. Blood freely given to bind what was separate, she recited from memory. Darkness freely embraced to unite what was divided. The eclipse deepened, the moon turning blood-red above her. Wind picked up around the circle, though the candle flames didn't waver. I call forth my perfect complement, my magical opposite, Wednesday continued, her voice growing stronger. Through shadow and flame, through blood and bone, I summon you from your world to mine. She had expected something to happen, sparks, maybe, or a dramatic clap of thunder. What she hadn't expected was the ground beneath her feet to split open, revealing not dirt but a swirling vortex of energy that glowed with unnatural light. For the first time, Wednesday felt a flicker of uncertainty. Had she mistranslated something? The book hadn't mentioned. A hand shot out of the vortex, followed by an arm, then a shoulder. Wednesday stumbled back as a figure pulled itself from the portal, gasping and disoriented. A boy, no, a young man, collapsed onto the dirt of the graveyard. He wore strange robes, torn and singed as if he'd been in a fight. A thin wooden stick, a wand, was clutched in his white-knuckled grip. His black hair stuck up at odd angles, and when he raised his head, she saw green eyes behind cracked round glasses. "What the bloody hell?" he croaked, looking around wildly. "Where am I? What happened to?" His eyes found Wednesday, standing there with her bleeding hand and ceremonial knife, surrounded by candles in a graveyard. "Who are you? What have you done?" Before Wednesday could answer, pain shot through her chest like lightning. She dropped to her knees, gasping, as something that felt like a red-hot wire seemed to stitch itself from her heart to the stranger's. From his agonized expression, he felt it too. "What?" he choked out, clutching his chest. The vortex snapped closed. The blood moon above completed its eclipse. And in the sudden silence, Wednesday realized with perfect clarity that she'd made a terrible, fascinating mistake. "I'm Wednesday Adams," she said, recovering first and rising to her feet. "And I think I just accidentally bound our souls together." Harry Potter had been having a perfectly horrible day even before being yanked across dimensions by a gothic teenager with murder eyes. It had started with tracking the remaining Death Eaters who'd gone into hiding after Voldemort's defeat. 3 years of hunting down the stragglers, and Harry was tired. Ron and Hermione had settled into their ministry careers while he kept chasing the darkness, unable to let go. This particular group had holed up in an abandoned manor in northern Scotland. Harry had been closing in, wand raised, when the world had suddenly torn apart around him. Now he stood in a graveyard that looked like it had been designed by someone who found regular graveyards too cheerful, facing a girl dressed entirely in black who'd just announced she'd bound their souls together. "That's not possible," Harry said automatically, years of impossible things having taught him to deny first, panic later. "Soul magic doesn't work like that. And who exactly are you supposed to be?" He tried to step toward her, but after about 10 feet, a searing pain shot through his chest again. Harry gasped, doubling over. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," the girl, Wednesday, said calmly. "The ritual created a tether. We can't move beyond 20 feet of each other without consequences." Harry straightened, fighting for control. "Undo it," he demanded. "I'm afraid I can't." She didn't sound particularly sorry. The ritual was meant to call forth a perfect magical complement from another realm. It wasn't designed with a return policy. "There's always a way to break a spell," Harry insisted, thinking of Bill Weasley and his curse-breaking expertise. "I need to get back. Now. There are people who," he stopped, a horrible thought striking him. "Wait. Another realm? What do you mean?" Wednesday picked up the grimoire from beside the cauldron. "According to this, the ritual pulls someone from a parallel world. Someone whose magic balances the casters." She studied him with unsettling intensity. "Who exactly are you?" "Harry Potter," he said, watching for recognition and seeing none. That was new. I'm a wizard from, well, apparently from a different world than this one. A wizard? Now she looked interested. Show me. Harry raised his wand, grateful he still had it. Lumos, he said, and the tip ignited with light. It felt different somehow, wilder, less controlled. Wednesday's eyes widened fractionally, the most emotion he'd seen from her yet. Interesting. Our magical systems appear compatible, yet distinct. Great. Fascinating. Can we focus on sending me back now? Harry extinguished his wand with a frustrated wave. Not until we understand exactly what's happened. She approached him, seemingly unbothered by their situation. The binding is physical, magical, and possibly spiritual. We need to determine its full effects before attempting to alter it. Harry ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd never outgrown. Look, I was in the middle of something important. People could be hurt if I don't get back. Your heroics will have to wait, Wednesday said flatly. Unless you want to die trying to break an ancient magical bond without proper research. Before Harry could respond, a crash came from the direction of a looming mansion that Harry only now noticed at the edge of the graveyard. A light flickered on inside. Wednesday frowned. Someone's in the house. My family's not due back until Sunday. Could it be? I don't know, a normal visitor? Harry asked. She gave him a look that suggested he'd said something incredibly stupid. We don't get normal visitors. Stay close. Like he had a choice. Harry followed her toward the mansion, wand at the ready. As they approached, he took in the building's Gothic architecture, the gargoyles leering from the roof, the dead plants decorating the garden. It looked like a haunted house from a Muggle horror film. Welcome to the Addams family home, Wednesday said, catching his expression. Try not to touch anything. Most things bite back. They entered through a side door, into what appeared to be a conservatory filled with the strangest collection of plants Harry had ever seen, and he'd taken 7 years of herbology. These specimens seemed to be actively carnivorous, their vines slithering along trellises and their blooms revealing rows of teeth. Your family grows these, on purpose? Harry whispered as something that looked like a Venus flytrap the size of a dog snapped at his ankles. Mother's hobby, Wednesday replied. She finds normal flowers depressing. Another crash echoed from deeper in the house. Wednesday moved silently toward the sound, her boots somehow making no noise on the wooden floor. Harry followed, impressed despite himself at her stealth. They passed through a dining room dominated by a massive table that appeared to be made from a single slab of obsidian, then into a grand foyer where suits of armor clutched very real weapons. The crashing grew louder, coming from what Harry guessed was the library. Wednesday pulled a crossbow from behind a suit of armor. Harry raised an eyebrow. We keep weapons everywhere, she explained with a shrug. Family tradition. They positioned themselves on either side of the library door. Harry counted down silently with his fingers. 3, 2, 1, they burst in together to find a tall, impossibly thin figure with chalk-white skin rifling through the bookshelves. It turned at their entrance, revealing eyes like black pits and a mouth too wide for its face. Well, well, it said in a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. The Addams girl. My mistress will be pleased. Wednesday fired the crossbow without hesitation. The bolt struck the creature squarely in the chest, but instead of falling, it looked down at the wound with mild annoyance. Then it pulled the bolt out, its flesh sealing instantly. Rude, it commented. Stupefy. Harry shouted, sending a jet of red light at the thing. The spell hit, but instead of stunning it, the magic seemed to sink into its skin, absorbed. The creature smiled, revealing too many teeth. Magic from another world. How interesting. My mistress will want to know of this. It moved with shocking speed, lunging at Wednesday. Harry reacted instinctively, grabbing her arm to pull her aside. The moment their skin touched, something extraordinary happened. Energy surged between them, hot and electric. Harry felt his magic connect with hers in a way he couldn't explain, like two puzzle pieces clicking together. Wednesday gasped, clearly feeling it too. The creature reached for them, but Wednesday raised her hand at the same moment Harry pointed his wand, and without either of them speaking a spell, a blast of combined energy erupted from both points. It wasn't red like a stunning spell or green like a killing curse, it was silver and black intertwined, a magic Harry had never seen before. The creature shrieked as the energy struck it, its body contorting. For a moment, it seemed to fold in on itself like paper being crumpled, and then it simply dissolved, leaving nothing but a small pile of grey dust on the carpet. Harry and Wednesday stared at each other, equally shocked. That, Wednesday said slowly, was not supposed to happen. What did we just do? Harry asked, looking from his wand to her hand. I think, we just discovered the first side effect of our binding. She knelt to examine the dust pile. Combined magic. Exponentially more powerful than what either of us could produce alone. Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty mansion. That thing, it mentioned a mistress. Someone sent it. Yes. Wednesday stood, brushing dust from her black dress. Which means someone knows about the ritual. Someone who's been watching for it to be performed. Her expression darkened. We need to find out what we've awakened. She walked to a specific bookshelf and pulled a hidden lever. The shelf swung outward, revealing a hidden room filled with more books, strange artifacts, and what appeared to be medieval torture devices repurposed as furniture. My father's study, she explained, heading for a massive desk constructed from what looked suspiciously like human bones. If anyone's researched soul-binding rituals before, he has. Harry followed, still processing everything. So we're stuck together, our magic goes haywire when we touch, and something is hunting us. Brilliant. Just how I wanted to spend my weekend. Wednesday glanced at him, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. If it helps, I was planning on practicing taxidermy and contemplating mortality. This is much more interesting. Glad someone's enjoying this, Harry muttered, but found himself almost smiling back. There was something oddly refreshing about her morbid frankness. As Wednesday began pulling out books and scrolls, Harry took stock of their situation. He was trapped in an alternate world with no clear way home, magically bound to a girl who performed dangerous rituals for fun, and being hunted by something that sent monsters after them. It felt disturbingly like his normal life, actually. Here, Wednesday said suddenly, holding up an ancient leather journal. My great-great-grandmother Desdemona's diary. She was obsessed with forbidden magic. Harry joined her at the desk as she flipped through brittle pages covered in spidery handwriting. After several minutes of searching, Wednesday stopped on a page marked with a drawing similar to the symbol on the grimoire's spine. Listen to this, she said, translating from what looked like Latin. The ritual of complementary souls was first created by the witch Morrigan Blackwood in 1487 to save her dying lover. By binding their souls across the veil, she hoped to share her life force with him. The ritual failed, for instead of pulling her lover's soul back from death, it summoned his opposite from another world entirely. Enraged by her failure, Morrigan slaughtered the summoned one and her lover died regardless. In her grief, she became obsessed with the ritual, attempting it during each blood moon for decades. Wednesday looked up, her dark eyes meeting Harry's. It gets worse. Records indicate Morrigan discovered that by harvesting the combined magic of soulbound pairs, she could extend her own life indefinitely. She began hunting those who performed the ritual, draining their combined power before they learned to master it. The last confirmed sighting of Morrigan was in 1897, though some believe she still lives, waiting for the next blood moon to bring forth new prey. Harry let out a slow breath. So the creature that attacked us, was likely sent by Morrigan herself, Wednesday finished. If she still lives, she would have felt the ritual being performed. The blood moon only ended 2 hours ago, and already she's found us. Perfect, Harry said, pacing within their 20-foot limit. So we've got an immortal witch hunting us for our combined magic, which we have no idea how to control. He paused. Though we did pretty well against her servant just now. That was instinctive, Wednesday countered. Raw power without direction. We need to understand how our magics interact if we want to stand a chance against Morrigan herself. Harry nodded, his mind shifting to tactical planning, a familiar pattern after years of Auror work. All right. First priority is learning to control this bond. Second is figuring out Morrigan's weaknesses. Third is finding a way to break the binding so I can get home. Wednesday raised an eyebrow. In that order? Yes, Harry said firmly. Because if Morrigan kills us, I definitely can't get home. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Logical. There might be more information in the family records. My ancestors have been collecting magical knowledge for centuries. Before they could continue their research, a scratching sound made them both turn. Harry raised his wand, but Wednesday held up a hand. It's just thing, she said as a disembodied hand scuttled into the room on its fingers. Harry stared. That's a hand. A living, severed hand. Family retainer, Wednesday explained casually. Thing, we have a guest. Harry Potter from another dimension. We're magically bound together and being hunted by an ancient witch. Thing gave what appeared to be a thumbs up of understanding, then began gesturing rapidly in what Harry realized was sign language. What's it saying? He asked. That someone broke through the outer wards 10 minutes ago, Wednesday translated, her expression darkening. And there are more creatures approaching the house from all directions. Harry moved to the window and peered out. In the moonlight, he could see shapes moving across the grounds, at least a dozen figures similar to the one they destroyed in the library. We're surrounded, he confirmed. Any chance your family has defensive measures built into this place? Wednesday's smile was suddenly predatory. The Addams family home has been repelling uninvited guests for generations. Follow me. She led him to a massive pipe organ in the corner of the study. Thing scurried ahead, climbing onto the keys. Home defense system, Wednesday explained, positioning her fingers over specific keys. Father updates it every Halloween. She played a short, discordant melody that made Harry's teeth vibrate. Thing added a flourish at the end, dancing across the higher octaves. Immediately, the house seemed to come alive around them. Harry heard mechanical grinding from the walls, followed by what sounded distinctly like weapons being loaded. Outside, stone gargoyles detached from the roof with scraping sounds. That should slow them down, Wednesday said with satisfaction. But we should move to the conservatory. More exits. As they hurried through the house, Harry glanced at her. Your family really lives like this? Ready for siege at any moment? Doesn't yours? She replied, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Harry thought about the burrow, with its mismatched additions and homey chaos, then Grimmauld Place with its dark history and hidden curses. Actually, yes. Just, differently. They reached the conservatory just as the sounds of combat erupted outside, screeches and roars mixed with the mechanical clank of whatever defenses the Addams mansion employed. It won't hold them forever, Wednesday said, moving to a cabinet disguised as a carnivorous plant. She removed several vials of colorful liquids. Defensive potions. My mother's recipes. Harry took one that glowed an ominous green. What does this do? Melts organic matter on contact, Wednesday said matter-of-factly. I'd throw it rather than drink it. Noted. Harry pocketed the vial. A crash from the front of the house suggested the creatures had breached the first line of defenses. Wednesday turned to Harry. We need to try controlling our combined magic. When we touched before, it just happened, Harry finished. Like our magics recognized each other. She nodded and held out her hand. Try again. With purpose this time. Harry hesitated, then placed his palm against hers. The connection sparked instantly, that same electric current flowing between them, but stronger now that they were expecting it. He could feel her magic, cold and precise where his was warm and instinctive. Focus on a specific spell, Harry suggested, thinking of his DA lessons. Something simple. Wednesday nodded. Light, she suggested. Just light. They both concentrated, and where their hands touched, a soft glow began to emanate. It grew steadily brighter, illuminating the conservatory with silver-white light that cast no shadows. "It's working," Harry whispered, amazed at how different this felt from any magic he'd performed before. It was like having access to twice the power with half the effort. The moment broke as something large smashed through the conservatory's glass ceiling. Shards rained down as 3 of the white creatures dropped into the room, their 2 wide mouths open in identical snarls. Harry and Wednesday broke apart, the light vanishing. Without thinking, Harry shouted, "Protego!" At the same moment Wednesday flung one of her mother's potions. The shield charm didn't form as he expected. Instead, it wrapped around the potion vial, creating a bubble that carried the deadly liquid directly to the nearest creature. When it struck, the combined magic caused the potion to explode in a shower of caustic green that affected only the creatures, leaving the plants untouched. All 3 monsters howled as the enhanced potion dissolved them into puddles of hissing goo. "That was..." Harry began. "Efficient," Wednesday finished, looking impressed despite herself. "Even without direct contact, our magics are influencing each other." Before they could explore this further, Thing came racing into the conservatory, signing frantically. "There are too many," Wednesday translated. "The house defenses are failing." Harry made a quick decision. "We need to leave. Find somewhere to regroup and learn more about what we're facing." Wednesday nodded. "The family has a safe house in the cemetery. Underground." She grabbed a black leather bag from behind a Venus flytrap and began filling it with books and potions. Harry helped, adding, "We should take everything we can about the ritual and Morrigan. And food," he added practically. "No telling how long we'll need to hide." As they prepared, Harry felt a sudden, sharp pain in his head, not unlike his old scar hurting, but spreading throughout his mind. He gasped, dropping the book he'd been holding. "What's wrong?" Wednesday asked, at his side instantly. "I don't," Harry began, but then images flooded his mind, a young girl with black braids watching impassively as frogs were dissected in science class, the same girl, slightly older, standing in a summer camp cabin surrounded by glaring blonde girls, a teenage Wednesday setting fire to a boy's car after he laughed at her family. "I can see your memories," he said in shock. "Just flashes, but," Wednesday's eyes widened fractionally. "I felt something too. A castle. A giant snake. A man with no nose." She frowned. "Your life has been unusually eventful." "You have no idea," Harry muttered. "The bond must be getting stronger. Sharing memories now." A tremendous crash from the main part of the house suggested they were out of time. Wednesday slung the bag over her shoulder. "This way," she said, moving to what appeared to be a solid wall covered in poisonous-looking ivy. She pressed a specific leaf, and the wall slid open to reveal a narrow tunnel. "Family escape route. Leads directly to the mausoleum." Harry followed her into the passage, things scurrying after them just as more creatures burst into the conservatory. The wall slid closed behind them, plunging them into darkness. "Lumos," Harry whispered, his wand tip igniting. They moved quickly through the tunnel, which sloped downward and was lined with what appeared to be human remains embedded in the walls. Harry decided not to ask. "Your family certainly believes in being prepared," he commented instead. "Paranoia is an Addams family tradition," Wednesday replied. "Along with hexing, poisoning, and outliving our enemies." They reached the end of the tunnel, emerging inside a massive stone mausoleum. Wednesday approached the central sarcophagus and pushed its lid aside with surprising strength, revealing not a body but a staircase leading further down. "After you," she said. Harry descended into darkness, wondering just how deep the Addams family's secrets went, literally and figuratively. At the bottom of the stairs, he found himself in a surprisingly comfortable room with stone walls, bookshelves, a fireplace, and various antique furniture. "Safe house?" he asked as Wednesday joined him. "Great-grandfather Alphonse built it during the witch trials," she explained, lighting candles with practiced efficiency. "It's been upgraded since. Completely warded and untraceable." Harry examined the space. Despite its underground location and macabre decorations, were those actual skulls being used as bookends, it had a certain cozy quality. Like the room of requirement had provided exactly what a Gothic family on the run would need. "We should be safe here temporarily," Wednesday said, emptying their bag onto a table. "Morrigan won't give up, but it will take her time to track us again." Harry joined her at the table. "So what's the plan?" "Research how to control our bond, find Morrigan's weakness, and figure out how to break the binding." Wednesday nodded, already opening books. "We need to understand what we're capable of together. That's our advantage." As they began sorting through the materials they'd brought, Harry felt another flash of shared memory, Wednesday standing in this very room years ago, hiding with her brother after some childhood mischief gone wrong. "You've been here before," he said. "When you were younger." She glanced at him. "With Pugsley, yes. We set fire to our camp counselor's car and needed somewhere to hide the evidence." She tilted her head. "This memory sharing could be useful. We're learning about each other without wasting time on introductions." "Efficient," Harry said, echoing her earlier assessment. He hesitated, then asked, "So your whole family is, like this? The house, the monsters, the casual discussion of hexing enemies?" "We're Addamses," she said simply, as if that explained everything. After a moment, she added, "What about yours?" "I saw fragments. The red-headed family wasn't your birth family." "The Weasleys," Harry said, surprised by the pang of homesickness. "They took me in. My parents were murdered when I was a baby." Wednesday's expression didn't change, but somehow Harry sensed a shift in her. Not pity, he had a feeling Wednesday Addams didn't do pity, but something like recognition. "Death follows some people," she said softly. "Grandmother says it marks them." Before Harry could respond to that unexpectedly profound observation, Thing jumped onto the table, signing rapidly. "Something's coming through the tunnel," Wednesday translated, immediately reaching for a crossbow mounted on the wall. "The defenses should have slowed them down more." Harry raised his wand, moving to position himself beside her facing the staircase. "Ready to try that combined magic again?" Wednesday met his eyes. For the first time, he saw a flicker of something that might have been excitement in their dark depths. "Ready." They stood shoulder to shoulder as heavy footsteps descended the stairs. Harry felt the now familiar buzz of their magics reaching for each other, even without direct contact. The footsteps stopped. A moment of silence, then a voice that sounded like wine through a graveyard called out, "I know you're there, children. I can feel your power. So fresh, so raw, so delicious." A figure appeared at the bottom of the stairs, not one of the white creatures, but a woman. At first glance, she appeared young and beautiful, with long black hair and pale skin. But as she stepped into the candlelight, Harry saw her features were constantly shifting, aging and rejuvenating in subtle waves, as if time couldn't decide how old she was. "Morrigan," Wednesday said, her voice steady despite the crossbow trembling slightly in her hands. "The very same." The witch smiled, revealing teeth that were just a little too sharp. "How clever of you to know me already. That will make this so much more interesting." Harry raised his wand. "Stay back." Morrigan laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Or what, little wizard from another world? You'll throw sparks at me? I've been harvesting soulbound pears for centuries. Your power is impressive, I admit, stronger than most I've encountered. But you have no idea how to use it. We managed well enough against your servants, Wednesday replied coldly. Mere scouts, Morrigan dismissed with a wave. Disposable. I needed to confirm what I felt during the blood moon. Her eyes gleamed hungrily. And oh, what a discovery. Not just any wizard, but one whose magic evolved in an entirely different reality. The potential energy is, mouth-watering. She took another step forward. Harry tensed, ready to cast, but Wednesday surprised him by lowering her crossbow slightly. You created the ritual, Wednesday said. To save someone you loved. Something flickered across Morrigan's shifting features, pain, ancient but undiminished. Clever girl. Yes, I created it for my Darien. He was dying, and I thought. She shook her head. It doesn't matter. He died anyway, and I learned that love is weakness. Power, however, power is eternal. Is that why you hunt soulbound pairs? Harry asked, trying to keep her talking while he edged closer to Wednesday. For their power. Their combined essence sustains me, Morrigan confirmed. Normally I'd take more time, watch you discover your abilities, let your bond strengthen, it makes the harvest so much richer. Her expression hardened. But you're different. Too dangerous to leave unchecked. She raised her hands, and the air around her began to distort. Harry felt the magical pressure building, like the moment before a storm breaks. Now, he shouted, grabbing Wednesday's free hand. Their magic connected instantly, stronger than before. Wednesday dropped the crossbow and placed her other hand against Harry's wand arm. The surge of power was immediate and overwhelming, like touching a live wire. Morrigan's attack, a wave of green-black energy, struck their hastily formed shield. Instead of breaking through, it rebounded, sending the witch staggering backward. Impossible, she hissed. You can't possibly have mastered. Harry and Wednesday moved in perfect synchronization, neither speaking but both knowing exactly what to do. Their combined magic gathered between them, silver and black energies twining together, and with a shared thrust of their hands, they sent it hurtling toward Morrigan. The blast caught her squarely in the chest. For a moment, her form seemed to waver like a mirage in heat, her age fluctuating wildly from young woman to ancient crone and back again. Then she steadied herself, though Harry could see the effort it cost her. Impressive, she acknowledged, genuine surprise in her voice. No newly bound pair has ever repelled me before. Her lips curved in a predatory smile. This will be more entertaining than I thought. Before they could attack again, Morrigan made a slashing motion with her hand. The air split open behind her, revealing a swirling portal similar to the one that had brought Harry through. Until next time, children, she said, stepping backward into the portal. Enjoy discovering your bond. The closer you grow, the sweeter you'll taste when I drain you dry. The portal closed with a sound like tearing silk, leaving Harry and Wednesday alone with Thing in the underground chamber. They stood frozen for a moment, hands still joined, magic still crackling between them. Then Wednesday turned to Harry, something like respect in her usually impassive face. We drove her off, she said, sounding faintly surprised. Harry nodded, equally stunned. For now. But she'll be back. He looked down at their joined hands, at the silver and black energy still shimmering around them. What did we just do? That wasn't like any magic I've ever performed. Wednesday slowly pulled her hand away, the energy dissipating. Synergistic casting, she said. I've read theories about it, but it's supposed to take years of practice for two magic users to synchronize their energies. She studied him with new interest. Somehow, the ritual created an instant pathway between our magical cores. Harry ran a hand through his already messy hair. Great. So we're magical battery packs for an immortal witch, and our only defense is a power we barely understand and can't control. He sighed. Just another Tuesday, really. To his surprise, Wednesday's lips twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. It's Wednesday, actually. Harry stared at her for a moment, then burst out laughing, partly from the absurd pun, partly from the tension of the last few hours. After a moment, Wednesday's smile widened fractionally, which Harry suspected was the equivalent of hysterical laughter for her. "Right," Harry said when he'd recovered. "Of course it is." Things scurried between them, signing something that made Wednesday nod. "Things right," she translated. "We should reinforce the defenses. Morrigan will recover and return, probably with more creatures." Harry nodded, his aura training kicking in. "We need a perimeter alarm system, backup escape routes, and a more coherent plan for using our combined magic." Wednesday moved to one of the bookshelves, selecting several ancient tomes. "I'll research the ritual further. There may be aspects we haven't discovered yet." She paused. "You know defensive magic from your world?" "Quite a bit," Harry confirmed. "I spent most of my teens fighting a war, and the last 3 years hunting dark wizards." Another flash of memory passed between them, Harry facing Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, accepting death, Wednesday watching impassively as her uncle fenced with her father, swords flashing lethally in the Addams family living room. "You've died before," Wednesday said, not a question but a statement of fact gleaned from his memory. Harry nodded cautiously. "It's complicated." "Death is always complicated," she replied matter-of-factly. "Grandmother says it's shy, which is why it sometimes changes its mind when it meets someone new." Harry wasn't sure how to respond to that. His experiences with death had been anything but philosophical discussions with grandmothers. "Let's focus on staying alive this time," he suggested. "I'll set up wards, my kind. They might work differently here, which could be an advantage. Morrigan won't know what to expect." They worked through the night, Harry casting protection spells around their underground sanctuary while Wednesday pored over books about the ritual, occasionally sharing relevant information. "Listen to this," she said as dawn approached, though underground they could only tell by an ancient clock on the mantel. "The binding of souls creates a progressive integration of magical and mental faculties. Stage 1 is physical tethering, followed by memory sharing, then emotional resonance, and finally complete magical synchronization." Harry paused in his spell casting. "We've already experienced the first 2 stages." Wednesday nodded. "Emotional resonance is next." She frowned slightly. "That could be uncomfortable." "Sharing feelings?" Harry grimaced. "Yeah, not looking forward to that bit." "Feelings are messy," Wednesday agreed, turning the page. "But the complete synchronization, that's the final stage when bound pairs can perform magic together without even touching. Perfect coordination, amplified power. Which is exactly what Morrigan wants to harvest," Harry pointed out. "The stronger our bond gets, the more she wants to drain us. But also the better equipped we are to fight her," Wednesday countered. "It's a race, master our connection before she can take it from us." Harry finished the final ward and joined her at the table. "Then we'd better start practicing." They spent the next hours experimenting with their combined magic, discovering that even the simplest spells became exponentially more powerful when cast together. Harry's lumos could now illuminate the entire chamber, Wednesday's minor hexes could shatter stone. As morning turned to afternoon, exhaustion began to set in. They hadn't slept since before the ritual, and the magical exertion was taking its toll. "We should rest," Harry suggested, stifling a yawn. "Take shifts." Wednesday nodded, dark circles under her eyes the only indication of her fatigue. "You first." "I want to finish translating this section on blood rituals." Harry wanted to argue but found he could barely keep his eyes open. He moved to a gothic-looking chaise lounge in the corner and stretched out, his wand still gripped loosely in his hand. "Wake me in 4 hours," he murmured. "Or if anything tries to eat us." "Of course," Wednesday replied, already turning back to her book. As Harry drifted toward sleep, he felt something new through their bond, not a memory this time, but a feeling. Determination, curiosity, and beneath it all, a flicker of something that might have been excitement. Wednesday's emotions, bleeding through as their connection strengthened. His last thought before unconsciousness claimed him was that emotional resonance apparently worked both ways, because he was pretty sure the grudging respect he felt for the strange, macabre girl wasn't entirely his own. Harry woke to darkness and the sound of pages turning. For a disorienting moment, he thought he was back in the Hogwarts library with Hermione researching Horcruxes. Then reality reasserted itself, underground chamber, soul binding, immortal witch hunting them. Just another day in the life of Harry Potter. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. How long was I asleep? 6 hours, Wednesday replied from the table, where she still sat surrounded by books. 6. I told you to wake me after 4. She shrugged without looking up. You needed the rest. And I found something interesting. Harry joined her at the table, noting the dark circles under her eyes had deepened. You should sleep too. Sleep is for the uninspired, she replied dismissively, though Harry could feel her exhaustion through their strengthening bond. What did you find? He asked instead of arguing. Wednesday indicated a page covered in complex diagrams. Morrigan's original notes on the ritual. According to this, she didn't just create the binding, she created a reversal process. Harry's heart leapt. A way to break the bond. To send me home? Potentially. Wednesday turned the book so he could see better. The reversal requires 3 elements, the blood of both bound individuals, the essence of their shared magic, and, a catalyst she calls, the recognition of true purpose. What does that mean? I'm not certain, Wednesday admitted, frowning at the text. Her notes become philosophical here, talking about destiny and cosmic balance. Harry sighed. Of course. It's never just add water and stir, is it? Magic rarely is, Wednesday agreed. Especially ancient magic created by possibly insane witches. Before they could discuss further, Thing leapt onto the table, signing frantically. Something's triggered the outer alarm wards, Wednesday translated, instantly alert. Harry grabbed his wand. Morrigan. Or her creatures. Wednesday moved to a narrow periscope built into the wall that Harry hadn't noticed before. Family addition during the Cold War, she explained. Grandfather Mortimer was paranoid about nuclear fallout. She peered through the device, adjusting its position. 6 of those white creatures circling the mausoleum. No sign of Morrigan herself. Harry joined her at the periscope, their shoulders brushing. Another surge of shared magic sparked at the contact, but they were growing accustomed to the sensation. They're searching, Harry observed. Not attacking yet. The wards are holding, Wednesday confirmed. They can sense something, but can't pinpoint our location. Harry considered their options. We could stay hidden, continue researching. Or we could test our combined abilities in a real fight, Wednesday finished, a gleam in her dark eyes. See what we're truly capable of. Harry found himself nodding. If we're going to face Morrigan eventually, we need combat experience together. 6 opponents should provide adequate practice without overwhelming us, Wednesday said with clinical detachment, though Harry sensed excitement beneath her calm exterior. Adequate practice, Harry repeated with a small grin. You know, you remind me of someone from my world. She'd analyzed the precise mathematical probability of our survival before rushing into danger too. Wednesday raised an eyebrow. A logical approach to peril is the only sensible one. Harry didn't mention that he could feel her anticipation through their bond. For someone so outwardly emotionless, Wednesday Addams had surprisingly intense feelings, she just buried them deep. They gathered what they might need, Harry's wand, Wednesday's crossbow, and several of her mother's potions. Thing insisted on coming too, signing that he could be useful for reconnaissance. Ready? Harry asked as they stood at the bottom of the stairs. Wednesday nodded. Remember, maintain physical contact for maximum power amplification. They ascended the stairs into the mausoleum, moving silently. Thing scuttled ahead, peering through cracks in the stone to monitor the creatures' positions. 3 on the east side, 3 on the west, Wednesday whispered based on things report. They're spreading out. Harry nodded, formulating a plan. We take them in groups. Stay together, hit hard and fast. They positioned themselves at the mausoleum door. Harry counted down silently, 3, 2, 1, then pushed it open, stepping out into the graveyard with Wednesday at his side. The nearest creature spotted them immediately, its too wide mouth opening in a silent snarl. It lunged toward them with unnatural speed, its companions quickly following. Harry grabbed Wednesday's hand, their magic connecting instantly. Together they raised their free hands, Harry's wand and Wednesday's palm aligning. Without speaking, they released a blast of combined energy, silver and black intertwined, that caught the first creature mid-leap. The effect was spectacular. The creature didn't just fall or disintegrate, it seemed to fold in on itself, collapsing like a paper figure being crushed by an invisible hand, until nothing remained but a small pile of dust. The other 2 creatures hesitated, sensing the danger. Harry and Wednesday didn't give them time to retreat. Still connected, they swept their joined power in an arc that caught both monsters, reducing them to dust as efficiently as the first. East side clear, Wednesday said, her voice steady though Harry could feel her exhilaration through their bond. They turned as one, moving deeper into the graveyard to find the remaining creatures. The sense of fighting as a unit was unlike anything Harry had experienced before, not like the teamwork he'd developed with Ron and Hermione, but a deeper, more instinctive coordination, as if they shared not just magic but intent. The remaining 3 creatures attacked from different directions, trying to separate them. Harry and Wednesday stood back to back, hands still linked, creating a circle of protective energy around themselves. On 3, Harry said. 1, 2, they released their power simultaneously in 3 precise strikes, each targeting a different creature. All 3 collapsed into dust, leaving the graveyard silent once more. That was. Harry began. Effective, Wednesday finished, though there was a hint of genuine excitement in her voice. Harry turned to face her, still holding her hand. The bond between them hummed with shared energy and emotion, his adrenaline mixing with her satisfaction, creating a feedback loop of exhilaration. We're getting stronger, he said. That was easier than it should have been. The emotional resonance is accelerating, Wednesday agreed. I can feel your enthusiasm. Harry nodded. And I can feel your satisfaction, even though you're trying not to show it. She raised an eyebrow but didn't deny it. Instead, she looked around the graveyard thoughtfully. Morrigan will sense what happened here. She'll know we're growing stronger. Good, Harry said with determination. Let her come. We'll be ready. Wednesday's lips curved in a small, genuine smile, the first Harry had seen from her. Your confidence is, not entirely misplaced. Coming from her, Harry suspected that was high praise. They returned to their underground sanctuary, discussing strategies for their inevitable confrontation with Morrigan. As they descended the stairs, Harry felt another surge of shared memory, but this one was different, more immersive. He was standing in a massive Gothic castle, but not Hogwarts. People in black robes with pale, severe faces nodded approvingly as a younger Wednesday demonstrated a complex poison-mixing technique. Pride, isolation, and a fierce determination to excel flooded through him, Wednesday's memories of her school. Hexley Academy, Wednesday said aloud, evidently experiencing a similar flash of his memories. Your Hogwarts seems warmer. It was home, Harry said simply. Though not without its dangers. The best homes have at least 7 different ways to kill you, Wednesday replied matter-of-factly, and Harry found himself laughing again. You know, in a very strange way, you remind me of my godfather, he told her as they settled back at the research table. He had that same dark sense of humor. Had, she asked. He died. Harry felt the familiar pang, duller now with time but never completely gone. When I was 15. Wednesday nodded, accepting this without the usual awkward condolences people offered. Death is never far from some families. The Adamses have always maintained a friendly relationship with it. That's one way of looking at it, Harry said, finding her perspective oddly comforting in its straightforwardness. They returned to their research, searching Morrigan's notes for weaknesses they could exploit. As morning turned to afternoon, Harry noticed Wednesday's eyes beginning to close despite her obvious efforts to stay awake. "Your turn to rest," he said firmly. "I've slept, now you need to." She started to argue, but a yawn undermined her protest. "Fine. 2 hours. Then we continue preparing." Wednesday moved to the chaise lounge Harry had used earlier, stretching out with surprising grace for someone so exhausted. Within minutes, her breathing had deepened into sleep. Harry watched her for a moment, struck by how young and almost vulnerable she looked in repose. The perpetual intensity that animated her features had softened, revealing the teenager beneath the gothic exterior. Through their bond, he could sense her dreams, fragments of memories involving her family, her school, and strangely enough, a camp called Chippewa where she seemed to have been deeply miserable among cheerful blonde girls forcing her to participate in theatrical productions. Harry returned to the books, trying to give her privacy despite their increasingly transparent connection. He focused on Morrigan's notes, looking for anything that might help them defeat her, or break their bond so he could return home. The thought of home sent a wave of homesickness through him. Ron and Hermione would be frantic by now, wondering what had happened to him mid-mission. The Weasleys, McGonagall, his fellow Aurors, they'd be searching, perhaps thinking him dead. A pang of guilt followed. He'd been so focused on the immediate threat of Morrigan that he'd pushed aside thoughts of returning. Was that wrong? Shouldn't getting home be his top priority? But even as he considered this, he realized two things. First, defeating Morrigan was a necessary step toward breaking the bond safely. And second, part of him was reluctant to sever his connection with Wednesday. It made no logical sense. She was acerbic, morbid, and emotionally distant, everything he typically avoided in friendships. Yet in the short time they'd been bound together, he'd come to respect her intelligence, her courage, and her unique perspective on the world. There was something refreshing about her complete lack of interest in his fame or history, something comforting in her matter-of-fact approach to danger. Harry shook his head, returning his attention to the books. These thoughts could wait until after they'd dealt with the immortal witch trying to drain their life force. As he turned a page in Morrigan's journal, a particular passage caught his eye. The bound pair represents perfect balance, light and shadow, creation and destruction. Their power, when fully realized, transcends the limitations of either individual. It was this transcendent energy I sought to save my Darien, but instead created something more dangerous, a power that, if fully mastered, could rival my own immortality. Harry sat back, considering the implications. If Morrigan feared fully bonded pairs, perhaps that was the key to defeating her, completing their bond entirely, reaching that final stage of perfect synchronization. But that would make breaking the bond and returning home even more difficult. Before he could pursue this troubling thought, things scurried into the room, signing urgently. Harry couldn't understand the specific signs, but the disembodied hand's agitation was clear. He moved quickly to wake Wednesday. "Something's happening," he said as she opened her eyes immediately, fully alert despite having slept less than an hour. Thing climbed onto the table, signing rapidly as Wednesday watched. "Morrigan is coming," she translated, sitting up. "Not with creatures this time. She's alone, and she's calling for us." Harry frowned. Calling? Why would she announce herself? "A trap, obviously," Wednesday said, already gathering her weapons. "But also an opportunity." They ascended to the mausoleum and peered out cautiously. Morrigan stood in the center of the graveyard, her form more stable than before, less shifting between ages. She wore a long black dress that seemed to blend with the shadows around her. "Children," she called, her voice carrying unnaturally in the still air. Come out, wherever you are." I only want to talk. Harry and Wednesday exchanged skeptical glances. Talk. Right, Harry muttered. She's stronger than before, Wednesday observed. She must have fed on another bound pair. The thought sent a chill through Harry. Someone else had died to fuel Morrigan's power while they hid and researched. We need to end this, he said with sudden determination. Now. Wednesday nodded, her own resolve flowing through their bond. The final stage of synchronization. We need to achieve it. How? We've been practicing, but, complete openness, Wednesday said, looking uncomfortable with the concept even as she suggested it. No barriers, no held-back emotions or thoughts. Perfect trust. Harry understood her discomfort. Opening himself completely to another person went against every survival instinct he'd developed through years of war and loss. For Wednesday, who clearly valued her emotional walls, it would be even harder. Are you sure? He asked quietly. She met his eyes. No. But it's our only advantage. Harry nodded and took both her hands in his. They stood facing each other in the dim light of the mausoleum, the sounds of Morrigan's taunting calls filtering through the stone walls. Together, then, Harry said. No holding back. Wednesday took a deep breath, and Harry felt her mental barriers beginning to lower. He did the same, consciously dropping the acclimacy shields he'd maintained since the war, allowing his thoughts, memories, and feelings to flow freely into their shared connection. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Harry gasped as Wednesday's mind opened to his, a lifetime of isolation, of being feared and misunderstood, of finding beauty in darkness and comfort in the macabre. Her brilliant, methodical intellect, her fierce loyalty to her strange family, her determination to forge her own path, all of it washed over him in a flood of impressions. And he knew she was experiencing the same from him, his childhood of neglect, the burden of being the chosen one, the losses he'd endured, his desperate longing for connection, his exhaustion with fighting an endless parade of dark wizards. Their magics responded to this complete openness, silver and black energies swirling around them like a cyclone, growing stronger and more integrated with each passing second. Harry felt the final barriers between them dissolving, their separate powers becoming a single, unified force. It's working, Wednesday whispered, her usual monotone breaking with a hint of wonder. Harry nodded, unable to speak as their energies continued to merge. Through their now complete bond, he could sense Wednesday's thoughts as clearly as his own, her strategic mind already calculating how to use this new, unified power against Morrigan. Ready? He asked, though he already knew her answer. Ready, she confirmed, a fierce determination radiating from her. They moved as one to the mausoleum door, their steps perfectly synchronized, their magic a visible aura around them. When they pushed it open and stepped into the graveyard, Morrigan turned to face them, her ancient eyes widening in surprise. Well, she said, recovering quickly. The children have achieved full synchronization. How unexpected. She smiled, revealing teeth that were definitely sharper than human. That will make your essence even more potent when I drain you. You won't get the chance, Harry and Wednesday said in perfect unison, their voices overlapping in an unsettling harmony. Morrigan's smile faltered slightly. Your confidence is charming, but misplaced. I've been harvesting bound pairs for centuries. Did you think a few days of practice could prepare you to face me? We don't think, Wednesday said. We know, Harry finished. They raised their hands together, not touching but moving in perfect coordination. Their unified magic gathered between them, forming a sphere of swirling silver and black energy that grew rapidly in size and intensity. Morrigan's eyes narrowed. She raised her own hands, dark power gathering around her like a cloak. Enough games, she hissed, her youthful appearance slipping to reveal glimpses of the ancient being beneath. Your power is mine to take. She thrust her hands forward, sending a wave of sickly green energy toward them. Harry and Wednesday didn't move or flinch. Through their bond, they both knew exactly what to do. Their sphere of combined magic expanded outward, meeting Morrigan's attack. Instead of clashing or rebounding, their power seemed to absorb hers, growing stronger and more brilliant. Morrigan's confidence visibly wavered. "Impossible," she breathed. "No bound pair has ever, we're not just any bound pair," Wednesday said coldly. "We're something new," Harry added. Together, they shaped their combined power, molding it with shared will and intent. The sphere transformed, becoming a beam of focused energy that shot toward Morrigan with unerring precision. The ancient witch raised a hasty shield, but their magic cut through it like it wasn't there. When it struck Morrigan, she screamed, a sound like centuries of rage and pain compressed into a single moment. Her form began to destabilize, age and youth flickering across her features with increasing speed. The stolen energy she'd harvested from countless bound pairs over the centuries poured from her like light from a shattered lantern. "No," she shrieked. "I won't be undone by children." With desperate strength, Morrigan gathered what remained of her power and hurled it at them in a last, frenzied attack. Harry and Wednesday stood firm, their unified magic creating a perfect shield around them. As Morrigan's attack broke harmlessly against their protection, Harry felt a sudden insight through their bond, not his own thought, nor Wednesday's, but something born from their perfect union. "The ritual," he said aloud. "It wasn't meant for what she used it for." Wednesday nodded, understanding instantly through their connection. "It was meant to heal, not harm. To create balance, not exploit it." Together, they shaped their magic again, not as a weapon but as a restoration. The energy flowed from them toward Morrigan, surrounding her with a gentle luminescence that stood in stark contrast to her corrupted power. "What are you doing?" Morrigan gasped, trying to back away but finding herself unable to move. "Fulfilling the ritual's true purpose," Wednesday said. "Healing what was broken," Harry added. Morrigan's eyes widened in what might have been fear or realization. "No, you can't, I don't want," the light intensified, enveloping her completely. For a moment, Morrigan's form seemed to solidify, settling into the appearance of a woman in her prime, neither young nor old, but balanced between the two. Then, with a sound like a sigh, she dissolved into motes of light that scattered on the night breeze. Where she had stood, a single object fell to the ground with a soft thud. Harry and Wednesday approached cautiously, their unified magic still surrounding them in a protective aura. Wednesday knelt and picked up what appeared to be an ancient locket. When she opened it, they both saw a portrait of a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Darian," Harry said softly. "The one she tried to save." "The one whose death drove her to madness," Wednesday added. They stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the tragic origin of the threat they'd faced. Through their bond, Harry could feel Wednesday's complex emotions, satisfaction at their victory mixed with an unexpected empathy for Morrigan's initial motivation, if not her subsequent actions. "It's over," Harry said finally. "This battle, yes," Wednesday agreed. "But the bond remains." They looked at each other, fully aware of each other's thoughts. The question of breaking their connection hung between them, unspoken but impossible to ignore. "We should return to the sanctuary," Wednesday said after a moment. "There's more research to be done." Harry nodded, knowing through their bond that she, like him, was reluctant to make an immediate decision. The unified magic that had defeated Morrigan still flowed between them, a power unlike anything either had experienced before. Breaking it would mean losing something extraordinary, but maintaining it meant Harry might never return home. As they walked back to the mausoleum, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. A new day, in a world that now felt somehow changed by what they'd accomplished together. Chapter 2, Two Worlds, One Curse. Harry woke to the smell of something burning. He bolted upright, wand already in hand, before registering that he lay on an unfamiliar four-poster bed draped in black silk. Reality crashed back, different dimension, soul-binding, Wednesday Addams. Finally awake. Wednesday stood by a small cauldron, stirring something that emitted purple smoke. "I was beginning to think you'd sleep through the apocalypse." Harry rubbed his eyes, memories of yesterday's confrontation with Morrigan flooding back. How long was I out? 14 hours, Wednesday said, adding what looked suspiciously like an eyeball to her concoction. Magical exhaustion. Understandable, considering we nearly disintegrated an immortal witch. 14 hours. Harry swung his legs off the bed. Why didn't you wake me? I tried. The corner of Wednesday's mouth twitched slightly. You threatened to hex me into next Tuesday. Then you rolled over and started snoring. Harry felt heat rise to his cheeks. Through their bond, he sensed Wednesday's amusement, though her expression remained neutral. Where are we? He asked, taking in the Victorian furniture, stuffed ravens, and what appeared to be an Iron Maiden in the corner. Not the underground sanctuary. My bedroom, Wednesday replied. After Morrigan disappeared, we needed somewhere more comfortable to recover. The family is still away, so the mansion is secure enough. Harry nodded, then fully processed what she'd said. Wait, your bedroom? How did I get here? You walked, technically speaking. Wednesday stirred her cauldron counterclockwise. Though, stumbled while semi-conscious would be more accurate. Harry stood, testing his legs. Stiff, but functional. And you've been awake this whole time? Someone had to monitor the wards. She didn't mention that she'd likely been just as exhausted as him. Besides, I wanted to start researching what exactly we did to Morrigan. Did we kill her? Harry asked, the question that had lingered in his mind even as exhaustion claimed him. Wednesday considered this. I don't think so. We didn't destroy her, we transformed her. Restored her to what she was meant to be, perhaps. By using the ritual's original purpose, Harry agreed, remembering their shared insight during the battle. Healing instead of harming. Wednesday nodded. Which suggests the ritual that bound us together might have more dimensions than we initially understood. Harry moved to the window, looking out at the Addams family cemetery where they'd confronted Morrigan. The morning light did nothing to make it less ominous. So what now? He asked. We still need to figure out how to break the bond so I can go home. He felt a ripple of something through their connection. Not quite disappointment, not quite relief, but something complex that Wednesday quickly suppressed. We continue researching, she said pragmatically. But first, we need to establish a temporary normalcy. I have school tomorrow. Harry turned, incredulous. School? After everything that's happened? Education waits for no existential crisis, Wednesday said with a shrug. Besides, Nevermore Academy has an extensive occult library that might help us. You'll have to come with me, of course. Of course, Harry echoed, suddenly envisioning himself trailing awkwardly behind Wednesday through a high school. Because we can't be separated. Precisely. Wednesday extinguished the flame beneath her cauldron. The tether seems to have extended slightly, we measured 30 feet last night before the pain started, but it's still prohibitively limiting. Harry sighed, running a hand through his perpetually messy hair. Right. So I'm going to, what? Pretend to be a new student. A visiting cousin, Wednesday corrected. Principal Weems owes my mother several favors. She won't ask too many questions. A knock interrupted them, 3 precise raps on the bedroom door. Enter, Wednesday called. The door opened to reveal a disembodied hand scuttling on its fingers. Thing, Wednesday acknowledged. Any sign of Morrigan's minions? Thing gave a thumbs up, then made a 0 with his thumb and forefinger. All clear, Wednesday translated. For now. Harry nodded to the hand. Thanks, Thing. He was surprised how quickly he'd accepted a sentient disembodied hand as normal. Then again, after Hogwarts, his threshold for weird was pretty high. You should shower, Wednesday informed Harry bluntly. The bathroom is through there. I've left some of my cousin ITT's clothes that might fit you. Harry glanced down at his rumpled wizard robes, which had seen better days even before being dragged across dimensions. Thanks. As he headed for the bathroom, a thought struck him. Wait, the 20-foot limit, 30 now, Wednesday corrected. Still, how do we? He gestured vaguely at the bathroom. The door will remain partially open, Wednesday said matter-of-factly. I'll turn my back. Unless Victorian sensibilities are part of your magical education. Harry felt himself blushing again. No, it's just, he sighed. Fine. This is already the strangest situation I've ever been in, and I once rode a dragon out of a bank. Wednesday raised an eyebrow, curiosity pulsing through their bond. You'll have to elaborate on that later. 30 minutes later, Harry emerged from the bathroom wearing black jeans and a dark gray sweater that were only slightly too small. Wednesday had changed into a fresh black dress with a white collar, identical to the one she'd worn yesterday as far as Harry could tell. I need to contact my family, Wednesday said without preamble. To explain why I'm home early and why I'll be bringing a cousin to school. Harry nodded. Will they believe that? About me being a cousin? My family tree includes werewolves, sorcerers, and at least one sea monster, Wednesday replied. An unexplained British relative is hardly noteworthy. She pulled out an ancient-looking phone with a rotary dial and placed it on her desk. Mother checks the crystal ball every Sunday evening. This will be more direct. As Wednesday dialed, Harry took the opportunity to examine her room more closely. Unlike the typical teenage bedrooms he'd seen, there were no posters, no photos of friends, no colorful decorations. Instead, the walls displayed anatomical charts, preserved specimens in jars, and what appeared to be medieval torture instruments mounted like trophies. The bookshelves held leather-bound tomes on subjects ranging from toxicology to necromancy, interspersed with what looked like actual human skulls. A typewriter sat on a desk beside stacks of papers, stories or journal entries, perhaps. It was, Harry thought, exactly the room he would have expected Wednesday Addams to have. Mother, Wednesday was saying into the phone. Yes, I'm aware you're in Seattle. No, the house is still standing. Partially, at least. Harry listened with interest as Wednesday delivered a heavily edited version of recent events, describing his appearance as an unexpected family emergency, and the damage to parts of the mansion as minor structural readjustments. Yes, I'll be taking cousin Harry to Nevermore tomorrow. British branch, father's side. Of course he's strange and unusual, he's an Addams. Yes, I've already prepared an appropriately disturbing backstory. She hung up without saying goodbye, turning to Harry. That's settled. My parents send their regards and hope you haven't found our hospitality too conventional. Harry laughed despite himself. Definitely not conventional. Good, Wednesday said with the barest hint of approval. Now, we should test the current limits of our bond before attempting public interaction. They spent the next several hours experimenting with their connection, discovering that the pain of separation began at 30 feet and became debilitating at 35. Their ability to sense each other's emotions remained strong, though both had recovered enough mental energy to establish some basic privacy barriers. The combined magic they'd accessed during their confrontation with Morrigan proved more difficult to recapture. They could still amplify each other's power through physical contact, but the perfect synchronization they'd achieved seemed elusive outside of immediate danger. It's like a muscle, Harry suggested as they rested from their latest attempt. We stretched it to its limit fighting Morrigan, and now it needs to recover. Or it requires the specific emotional catalyst of imminent death, Wednesday countered pragmatically. By evening, they'd established a working understanding of their limitations and capabilities. Harry demonstrated several defensive spells from his world, while Wednesday showed him techniques from her family's uniquely macabre magical tradition. Your magic is more formalized, she observed as Harry conjured his Patronus, which, interestingly, appeared more solid and vibrant when she stood nearby. Structured around specific incantations and wand movements. And yours is more intuitive? Harry suggested, watching as she crushed dried herbs in a mortar while murmuring what sounded like poetry in Latin. Intent-based, she corrected. The Addams family tradition prioritizes will over methodology. As night fell, they ate dinner in the cavernous Addams family dining room, served by Thing, who proved surprisingly adept at carrying plates despite being only a hand. So, Harry said between bites of a stew he'd decided not to ask about the ingredients of Nevermore Academy. What should I expect? A collection of outcasts, misfits, and the supernaturally gifted, Wednesday replied. Werewolves, sirens, gorgons, the occasional psychic. Plus the normies, ordinary scholarship students with a tolerance for the strange. Sounds a bit like Hogwarts, Harry said nostalgically. Though we sorted by personality traits rather than species. Wednesday raised an eyebrow. Your school divided children based on arbitrary personality assessments. How barbaric. Says the girl whose family apparently collects torture devices, Harry countered with a smile. Those are family heirlooms, Wednesday sniffed. Besides, personality is fluid. Suffering is eternal. Harry laughed. You know, you'd have made a terrifying Slytherin. A flicker of curiosity passed through their bond before Wednesday suppressed it. Harry found himself increasingly aware of these small emotional tells, the feelings Wednesday experienced but immediately contained. We should rest, she said finally. Tomorrow will require significant energy expenditure, both magical and social. The sleeping arrangement presented another awkward challenge due to their 30-foot tether. I'll take the chaise lounge, Harry offered, eyeing the Victorian fainting couch in the corner of Wednesday's bedroom. Don't be melodramatic, she replied, rolling her eyes. The bed is large enough for both of us, and we're hardly Victorian swooning maidens. Despite his embarrassment, Harry had to admit the practical logic. They arranged themselves on opposite sides of the massive four-poster, a wall of pillows between them. Night, Harry said awkwardly as Wednesday extinguished the candles with a wave of her hand. Sleep well, she replied. Try not to have nightmares. They're bleeding through the bond, and I have enough of my own, thank you. Harry closed his eyes, exhaustion quickly overtaking him despite the strangeness of his situation. His last thought before sleep claimed him was that, of all the bizarre circumstances he'd found himself in over the years, being magically tethered to a teenage girl with a fondness for the macabre somehow wasn't the worst. The dream began as many of Harry's did, Hogwarts Castle, the Great Hall, familiar faces around him. But soon he realized something was different. The colors seemed off, the proportions slightly wrong, as if someone had heard descriptions of Hogwarts but never actually seen it. Interesting architecture, said a voice beside him. Wednesday stood there, looking around with clinical curiosity. Gothic elements, but the spatial orientation defies conventional physics. Wednesday. Harry stared at her. Are you actually here, or am I dreaming you? Both, I suspect. She examined a floating candle with mild interest. Shared dream space, the next logical progression of our bond. Before Harry could respond, the dream shifted. They stood now in a room Harry didn't recognize, a somber classroom where children in black uniforms practiced what appeared to be small acts of cruelty on various insects and small animals. Hexley Academy, Wednesday provided. My first school. Before Mother decided their approach to torture was insufficiently creative and transferred me to Nevermore. The dream shifted again, rapidly cycling through locations, Privet Drive, where a younger Harry huddled in the cupboard under the stairs, the Addams family living room, where Wednesday watched impassively as her parents danced a passionate tango, the Forbidden Forest, a summer camp with aggressively cheerful counselors, Dumbledore's office, a family graveyard party. Memories flowed between them, unfiltered by waking consciousness, Harry's years hunting Voldemort's Horcruxes, Wednesday's systematic terrorizing of camp bullies, Harry's death and resurrection, Wednesday's first successful reanimation of a deceased pet. This is invasive, Wednesday commented as they watched a memory of Harry kissing Ginny in the Gryffindor common room. Tell me about it, Harry muttered as the scene changed to Wednesday slow dancing with a pale young man while a disembodied hand played piano. "Lucas," she said without emotion. "My first romantic entanglement. It ended predictably. How's that? Betrayal, attempted murder, the usual adolescent melodrama." Harry couldn't help laughing, which felt strange within the dream. "And I thought my love life was complicated." The dreamscape shifted again, darker now. They stood in a graveyard, not the Addams family one, but the cemetery in Little Hangleton where Voldemort had been resurrected. "Ah," Wednesday said, watching as Dream Harry dueled with the newly returned Dark Lord. "Your nemesis. How classically archetypal. Says the girl who just showed me memories of fighting a possessed pilgrim bent on massacring outcasts," Harry countered. Wednesday shrugged, conceding the point as they watched Harry's and Voldemort's wands connect with golden light. The settings change, but human darkness remains consistent across dimensions. The dream dissolved, reforming into an image that neither recognized: a medieval village, a woman with long black hair working desperately over a sickbed where a young man lay dying. Morrigan and Darian, in their original time. "We're seeing her memories now," Harry realized. "The bond is connecting us to the ritual's creator," Wednesday agreed, watching as the scene played out: Morrigan's desperate spellcasting, the failed ritual, the arrival of a stranger from another world, Morrigan's rage and grief. "She really did love him," Harry said softly as they watched Morrigan cradle Darian's body, her anguish palpable even across centuries. "Love corrupted by grief," Wednesday observed. "A common enough tragedy." The dream shifted one final time, showing them something neither expected: themselves, standing together, hands joined, a perfect balance of silver and black magic surrounding them like an aura. "Is this the past?" Harry wondered. "Our battle with Morrigan?" Wednesday shook her head. "No, we're seeing something else. Something that hasn't happened yet." Before they could explore further, the dream began to fade, reality reasserting itself as morning approached. "Interesting," Wednesday's voice echoed as the dreamscape dissolved. "Very interesting indeed." Harry woke to bright sunlight and the sounds of someone moving around the bedroom. He opened his eyes to find Wednesday already dressed in what appeared to be a school uniform, a black and gray plaid skirt, white shirt, and black tie, all somehow looking more severe than Hogwarts robes ever had. "We need to leave in 20 minutes, she informed him, packing books into a leather satchel. "I've laid out clothes for you." Harry sat up, fragments of their shared dream still vivid in his mind. "Did you?" "Yes," Wednesday cut him off. "We'll discuss the dream implications later. School first." Harry nodded, climbing out of bed and gathering the clothes she'd indicated: black jeans, a gray button-down shirt, and a black jacket that looked vintage but fit surprisingly well. "Your cousins?" he asked, examining the jacket's unusual cut. "Grandfather Addams," she corrected. "His adolescent wardrobe. Mother preserves everything." Breakfast was a quick affair of suspiciously dark toast and coffee so strong Harry felt his magic tingle in response. Things scurried around, packing additional books Wednesday had requested from the family library into her already bulging satchel. "How are we getting to Nevermore?" Harry asked as they prepared to leave. "Mother's car," Wednesday replied, dangling an ornate key. "I've had my license since I was 14. Father believes that mortal danger builds character." Harry, who had faced mortal danger more times than he could count but never learned to drive, nodded as if this were perfectly reasonable. The car turned out to be a massive black vintage hearse. "Of course it is," Harry muttered, climbing into the passenger seat. Wednesday started the engine, which roared to life with unexpected power. "Mother had it modified. The engine is from a dragster, and the body is reinforced with spelling bronze. In case of witch hunters." She drove with surprising skill, navigating the winding roads out of the Addams estate and toward what she explained was the neighboring town of Jericho. "Nevermore is just beyond the town," she explained as they passed through a quaint New England village that reminded Harry somewhat of Hogsmeade. Founded in 1791 to educate the children of supernatural families who were fleeing persecution. So it's hidden from normal people. Like Hogwarts? Not exactly. Nevermore operates in plain sight, officially registered as a private academy for gifted students. The local townspeople are aware of it, though they remain willfully ignorant of its true nature. 3 centuries of suspicious incidents have taught them not to ask questions. They turned onto a narrow road that wound through dense forest, eventually revealing a sprawling campus of Gothic architecture that made Hogwarts look positively cheerful by comparison. "Home sweet home," Wednesday said dryly as she parked the hearse in a student lot. "Remember, you're my cousin from the British branch of the family, visiting for a semester while your parents handle diplomatic responsibilities abroad." Diplomatic? Your family does diplomacy? Not conventionally, but it sounds better than inciting revolutions in small countries, which is what Uncle Fester actually does. They exited the car, and Harry immediately felt the eyes of nearby students turn toward them. Wednesday seemed not to notice, or more likely, not to care, as she led him across the grounds toward a magnificent stone building. "Principal Weem's office," she explained. "We need to get your visitor's pass." Harry found himself taking in the student body as they walked. Just as Wednesday had described, the population appeared to be a mix of the strange and unusual. He spotted a boy with blue skin, a girl with snakes for hair, and what appeared to be a young werewolf lounging on the lawn. Nevermore divides students into 4 groups, Wednesday narrated as they walked. Werewolves, vampires, sirens, and gorgons. Though those are more tradition than strict taxonomy at this point. "And which are you?" Harry asked. "None. I refuse categorical limitations." She nodded toward a group of students dressed in bright colors, laughing loudly. "Those are normies, regular humans on scholarship. They adapt surprisingly well, considering their inherent limitations." Before Harry could respond, a tall girl with shocking white blonde hair approached, smiling brightly. "Wednesday. I thought you were away for the weekend with your family." Her gaze shifted to Harry, eyes widening with interest. "And who's this?" "Enid," Wednesday acknowledged with minimal enthusiasm. "This is my cousin, Harry." "Harry, this is my roommate, Enid Sinclair." "Nice to meet you," Harry offered, automatically extending a hand. Enid shook it enthusiastically. "Oh my God, you're British. That's so cool. We never get exchange students here. How long are you staying? Where are you from exactly? Is that a magic wand in your pocket or are you just happy to see me?" Harry froze at the last question, suddenly aware that his wand was indeed visibly poking from his jacket pocket. "It's a conductor's baton," Wednesday interjected smoothly. "Harry is musically inclined. A virtuoso. With a tragic condition that prevents public performances." "Oh." Enid looked sympathetic. "That's so sad." "Heartbreaking," Wednesday agreed flatly. "We need to see Principal Weems now. Harry's visitor paperwork." "Right. Well, see you at lunch. You have to tell me everything about Britain." Enid bounced away, her colorful attire a stark contrast to Wednesday's monochromatic palette. "Your roommate is energetic," Harry observed as they continued toward the administrative building. "Enid is a werewolf who hasn't transformed yet," Wednesday explained. "All that enthusiasm is compressed energy with no outlet. Like a bomb made of glitter and optimism." Principal Weems turned out to be a dignified woman with a serene smile that didn't quite reach her calculating eyes. She welcomed Harry to Nevermore with practiced warmth while giving Wednesday looks that suggested a complicated history. "Of course we're delighted to host a relative of the Addams family," she said, signing Harry's visitor pass with a flourish. "Though I must insist you follow our rules during your stay, Mr. Addams." "Potter," Harry corrected automatically, then caught Wednesday's sharp glance. Potter Addams. From the British branch." "Indeed." Weem's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, Wednesday will show you around. I've arranged for a cot in her dorm room, as we're unfortunately at capacity this semester. That's very accommodating, Principal Weems, Wednesday said in a tone that suggested this arrangement had been specifically negotiated via her mother's favors. Yes, well. Weems handed Harry his visitor badge. Do try not to burn anything down, blow anything up, or resurrect any dead faculty members during your stay. Has that happened before? Harry asked, genuinely curious. This is Wednesday's second school this year, Weems replied dryly. I'll leave it to your imagination why she needed to transfer. As they left the principal's office, Harry raised an eyebrow at Wednesday. Resurrect dead faculty members. An exaggeration, Wednesday said dismissively. The history teacher was only mostly dead when I found him. Revivification is hardly the same as resurrection. The morning passed in a blur as Harry followed Wednesday through her classes, introduced simply as a visiting relative, with minimal explanation. Most students seemed to accept this without question. Apparently, the sudden appearance of strange new people was not unusual at Nevermore. Wednesday's curriculum fascinated Harry. Rather than transfiguration or charms, she took classes with names like Evolutionary Biology of Supernatural Species and Post-Colonial Perspectives on Witch Trials. During Ancient Occult Literature, the professor, an elderly woman with milk-white eyes who was apparently blind yet never struggled to identify which student was speaking, assigned them to analyze ritual poetry from different magical traditions. Mr. Potter Adams, she called, somehow knowing exactly where Harry sat at the back of the room. Perhaps you'd share a ritual verse from your British tradition. Put on the spot, Harry's mind raced. He couldn't exactly recite Hogwarts spells, but he remembered something Hermione had once shared during their Horcrux hunt, an old British folk magic chant. He stood awkwardly. There's an old invocation used in certain parts of rural England, by oak, ash, and thorn combined, what is scattered, let me find. Blood to blood and bone to bone, return what wanders, guide it home. The professor nodded approvingly. A locator ritual. Simple but effective folk magic that predates formal education systems. Very good. Harry sat down, feeling Wednesday's surprise pulse through their bond. That actually has power, she whispered. Where did you learn it? My friend Hermione, Harry whispered back. She researched everything. After class, Wednesday led him to the library, a magnificent Gothic space with towering bookshelves, stained glass windows, and what appeared to be actual gargoyles watching from the corners. Nevermore has one of the most comprehensive collections of occult literature in North America, she explained, guiding him to a secluded section behind an iron gate. Including texts on interdimensional magic. The librarian, a tall woman with silver hair and unnaturally long fingers, nodded to Wednesday as they approached the restricted section. Miss Adams. Your mother's authorization came through this morning. Thank you, Ms. Nightshade, Wednesday replied, accepting an ancient key. Once inside the restricted section, they found a table hidden between towering shelves and began unpacking the books they'd brought from the Adams mansion, along with new volumes Wednesday selected from Nevermore's collection. We need to cross-reference what we know about the binding ritual with these interdimensional theories, she said, opening 3 books simultaneously. If we can understand exactly how you were pulled across realities, we might find a way to send you back without severing our bond prematurely. Harry paused in the act of opening a particularly ominous-looking tome. Without severing it? I thought the goal was to break the connection. Wednesday didn't look up from her reading. Breaking it improperly could kill us both. Or worse, leave fragments of each soul in the wrong dimension. I'd rather not spend eternity with half your Gryffindor righteousness disrupting my natural pessimism. Harry smiled despite himself. And I'd hate to suddenly develop your Wednesday-level gloom in the middle of aura training. They settled into research, the hours passing in comfortable silence broken only by occasional sharing of relevant passages. Harry found himself impressed by Wednesday's methodical approach and encyclopedic knowledge, while she seemed to appreciate his practical questions and instinctive grasp of magical theory. By lunchtime, they'd compiled several promising leads but no definitive answers. They packed up their notes and headed to the dining hall, where Enid immediately waved them over to a table she shared with several other students. "Everyone, this is Wednesday's cousin Harry," she announced as they sat down. "He's British and mysterious." Harry found himself the center of attention as the group introduced themselves: Ajax the werewolf, Yoko the vampire, Eugene the beekeeper who apparently had psychic connections to his insects. "So what's your thing?" asked a girl with shimmering scales along her hairline. "Everybody at Nevermore has a thing." "Harry's talents are private," Wednesday interjected before he could respond. "Family tradition." This seemed to satisfy the group, who quickly moved on to school gossip and complaints about upcoming exams. Harry relaxed slightly, grateful for Wednesday's interference. He caught her eye across the table and felt a pulse of understanding through their bond. As lunch ended, Wednesday stood abruptly. "We need to check something in the East Woods before next period." "But we have supernatural ethics in 20 minutes, Enid protested. "This is more important," Wednesday replied, already heading for the exit with Harry close behind. Once outside, she led him rapidly across the grounds toward a dense forest at the edge of campus. "I remembered something while you were answering questions about British weather patterns." "What's that?" "Nevermore was built on a convergence point, a place where the barriers between dimensions are naturally thinner. That's why it attracts supernatural students. They unconsciously gravitate toward places where magic flows more freely." Harry followed her into the woods, ducking under low-hanging branches. "Like ley lines?" "Similar concept, different manifestation." Wednesday moved with purpose, clearly following a path only she could see. "There's a specific clearing that," she stopped abruptly, causing Harry to nearly crash into her. Before them lay a perfect circle of mushrooms surrounding a flat stone that seemed to glow faintly in the dappled forest light. A fairy circle, Harry identified, recognizing it from his magical creatures studies. "More than that," Wednesday corrected, kneeling to examine the stone. "A doorway." She brushed leaves from the stone's surface, revealing symbols carved into its face, symbols Harry recognized from the ritual that had brought him to this world. "These match the grimoire," he said, crouching beside her. Wednesday nodded. "Exactly. Whoever built Nevermore knew about cross-dimensional pathways. They chose this location deliberately." She traced the symbols with her finger, and Harry felt a responding pulse through their bond, as if the stone somehow recognized the magic connecting them. "This could be our way back," Harry said, hope rising. "If we could," a twig snapped behind them. They both spun, Harry's wand and Wednesday's hand raised defensively. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, not Morrigan, but a young man with pale skin and intense eyes. He stared at them with undisguised hostility. "Xavier," Wednesday acknowledged flatly. "Eavesdropping again?" "Surveillance," he corrected, stepping forward. "After what happened last semester with Crackstone, the security club patrols these woods regularly." His gaze shifted to Harry. "Who's this? And why are you showing him the threshold stone?" "My cousin," Wednesday replied. "Family research project." Xavier's eyes narrowed. "He doesn't look like an Adams." "Funny, that's exactly what the last person who questioned my family said." Wednesday's tone remained neutral, but Harry felt her magic stirring defensively. Right before they mysteriously vanished during a solar eclipse. Xavier held her gaze for a long moment before looking away. "Whatever. Just remember, the threshold is off limits to students without faculty supervision. Even you, Wednesday." He turned and disappeared back into the trees, though Harry had the distinct impression he hadn't gone far. "Former boyfriend?" Harry guessed, feeling an unexpected flash of what might have been jealousy through their bond, though whether it originated from him or Wednesday was unclear. "Complicated," Wednesday replied, turning back to the stone. "Xavier has psychic abilities. He's sensitive to dimensional energies, which means he might sense our bond if he pays too much attention." Harry nodded, filing this information away. Is the stone really off limits? Technically. Wednesday shrugged. But rules are primarily suggestions wrapped in authoritarian packaging. She stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. We'll come back tonight. The threshold's power grows with the moon. They made their way back to campus just in time for Wednesday's next class, Practical Applications of Alchemical Theory, which turned out to involve actual cauldrons and ingredients that would have made Professor Snape either impressed or jealous. Harry sat at the back of the room, observing as the students created concoctions that bubbled, smoked, and occasionally tried to escape their containers. Wednesday worked with mechanical precision, her potion turning the exact shade of midnight blue described in the textbook while her classmates struggled with varying shades of purple and black. "Show off," Harry murmured through their bond, testing their ability to communicate silently. Wednesday's lips twitched slightly in what might have been a smile as she added a final ingredient with theatrical precision. "Perfectionist," she corrected without looking at him. This silent communication proved useful as the day progressed, allowing them to exchange observations without drawing attention. By the final period, History of Persecuted Peoples, which Harry found fascinating in its parallels to magical history in his own world, they had developed a comfortable rhythm. As classes ended and students returned to dormitories, Wednesday led Harry to her room in Ophelia Hall, the girls' dormitory named after a former student who drowned under mysterious circumstances but continues to maintain perfect attendance in spirit form, according to the plaque outside. "Girls and boys are separated here?" Harry asked, remembering Hogwarts' enchanted staircases. "Officially," Wednesday replied as they climbed the stairs. Though the administration's definition of girl and boy has evolved significantly since 1791. Her room turned out to be divided into two distinct halves, one explosion of color, posters, and stuffed animals that clearly belonged to Enid, the other a Spartan arrangement of black furniture, anatomical drawings, and what appeared to be a small guillotine model on the desk. "Home sweet prison cell," Wednesday said, dropping her satchel on the bed. "Enid has werewolf pack meetings on Mondays, so we have approximately 2 hours before her return." As promised, a narrow cot had been set up along Wednesday's wall, just within their 30-foot tether range. Harry sat on it, testing its firmness. "Better than a tent in the Forest of Dean," he commented, mostly to himself. Wednesday raised an eyebrow but didn't ask, instead retrieving their research materials from her bag. "We should prepare for tonight's expedition to the Threshold Stone. I've been thinking about the dream we shared, specifically the vision of Morrigan's original ritual. You think it's significant?" "Dreams are the mind's way of processing information without conscious interference," Wednesday said, spreading her notes across her desk. "Our bond showed us Morrigan's failure for a reason." Harry nodded, remembering the raw grief they'd witnessed. "She tried to save someone she loved and created something different than she intended." "A parallel to our situation," Wednesday agreed. "I performed the ritual seeking a magical complement, but instead bound us together permanently." "Not permanently," Harry corrected automatically. "We'll find a way to break it." Wednesday glanced at him, and through their bond, Harry felt a complex mix of emotions she quickly suppressed. "Of course. That's the goal." They spent the next hour reviewing their notes and preparing for the night's expedition. Wednesday pulled several small pouches of herbs and crystals from her desk drawer, explaining each component's purpose in amplifying dimensional energies. "The moon reaches its apex at 11:47 tonight," she said, checking an astronomical chart. "That's when the threshold will be most receptive." A knock at the door interrupted them. Wednesday frowned. Enid wouldn't knock on her own room, and it was too early for her return anyway. "Enter," she called cautiously. The door opened to reveal Principal Weems, her serene smile firmly in place though her eyes were sharp. "Miss Adams. Mr. Potter Adams. I hope you're settling in well." "Adequately," Wednesday replied. "Was there something you needed, Principal Weems?" Weems stepped into the room, her gaze sweeping over their research materials. "Just checking on our visitor. And reminding you both that Nevermore has rules about curfew and restricted areas." Her eyes lingered meaningfully on the map of campus they had open, with the threshold stone's location circled in red. "We're simply studying the school's historical significance," Wednesday said smoothly. "For Harry's cultural education." "Indeed." Weems smiled tightly. "Well, I should inform you that we've had reports of unusual activity in the East Woods. The faculty will be increasing patrols tonight, for student safety." Harry felt Wednesday's frustration pulse through their bond. "Thank you for the warning," she said neutrally. Weems nodded and turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Oh, and Miss Adams? Your mother called. She mentioned something about checking the family's emergency protocols. Said you'd understand." With that cryptic message, she departed, closing the door firmly behind her. "What did she mean about emergency protocols?" Harry asked once they were alone. Wednesday was already moving to her wardrobe, pulling out a small wooden box hidden beneath a false bottom drawer. "Mother suspects something's wrong. This is her way of warning me without alerting potential eavesdroppers." She opened the box, revealing what looked like a small silver hand mirror. Touching its surface, Wednesday murmured something in Latin, and the mirror's reflection swirled into darkness before revealing the face of a woman who could only be Wednesday's mother, elegant, pale, with the same penetrating dark eyes. "Wednesday, darling," Morticia Adams said, her voice rich and melodious even through the mirror's connection. "I see you received my message." "Yes, Mother." "What's happening?" "We've had a visitor at the Seattle hotel," Morticia replied, her calm expression belied by a certain tension around her eyes. "A woman asking very specific questions about ancient rituals and family grimoires. She seemed particularly interested in whether you were with us." Harry and Wednesday exchanged glances. "Morrigan," they said together. "I don't know this Morrigan," Morticia continued, "but she left rather abruptly when your father mentioned our collection of soul-binding countermeasures. Almost as if the words themselves caused her pain." "Soul-binding countermeasures?" Harry repeated. "You have those?" Morticia's gaze shifted to him, one perfect eyebrow arching elegantly. "You must be Cousin Harry. How delightful to meet you, even under such ominous circumstances." "Likewise," Harry managed, somewhat intimidated by the woman's intensity. "Mother," Wednesday redirected, "what exactly are these countermeasures?" "Ancient family defenses, dating back to the Salem trials," Morticia explained. "When witch hunters attempted to bind Adam's family magic to restrict it. Your great-great-grandmother Desdemona created amulets that would reflect such bindings back upon the caster. Do you have them with you?" Wednesday asked, leaning forward intently. "No, darling. They're in the family vault beneath the conservatory." Morticia's expression turned apologetic. "The same conservatory that I understand has been somewhat remodeled recently." Wednesday grimaced. "It's currently missing most of its roof and eastern wall." "How festive," Morticia commented without irony. "Well, the vault itself should remain intact. It's reinforced with spelling steel and the collective despair of 7 generations of Adamses. We'll retrieve the amulets," Wednesday promised. "Thank you for the warning, Mother." "Of course, darling. Do be careful." "And Harry?" Morticia's gaze fixed on him again. "Welcome to the family. Try not to die permanently, the paperwork for interdimensional death certificates is simply ghastly." The mirror's surface swirled back to normal, leaving Harry staring at his own reflection with a somewhat stunned expression. "Your mother is intense?" Wednesday suggested. "I was going to say, terrifying, but in a good way." Wednesday nodded as if this were a perfectly reasonable assessment. "We need to change plans. The threshold stone will have to wait. We should return to the mansion tonight and retrieve these amulets before Morrigan realizes they exist." "Agreed," Harry said. "Though getting off campus after Weems' warning about increased patrols won't be easy." Wednesday closed the box, returning it to its hiding place. Fortunately, sneaking out of educational institutions is an Addams family tradition. She glanced at the window. And I've had extensive practice. As night fell, they prepared for their covert expedition. Wednesday changed into all black clothing that Harry suspected was her regular wardrobe anyway, while he transfigured his borrowed clothes into darker colors. Impressive, Wednesday commented as she watched him alter the jacket's color with a tap of his wand. Instantaneous molecular transformation. Basic transfiguration, Harry shrugged. Though it feels different here, like the magic has to work harder to override your world's natural laws. They waited until the dormitory quieted, Enid returning briefly to change for what she called night hunting practice, before departing again with a cheerful wave. At precisely 10:15, Wednesday opened her window and gestured to a conveniently located oak tree whose branches extended near the building. Ladies first, Harry suggested. Wednesday gave him a look that might have been amusement. Age before beauty. Harry laughed softly and climbed out onto the window ledge. The drop to the nearest branch was about 6 feet, nothing compared to some of the stunts he'd pulled during the war. He made the jump easily, then held the branch steady as Wednesday followed with surprising agility. They made their way down the tree and across the moonlit grounds, keeping to shadows and avoiding the bobbing lanterns that indicated faculty patrols. Wednesday led them not toward the parking lot where they'd left the hearse, but toward a smaller, less obvious gate in the campus wall. Maintenance entrance, she explained in a whisper. The groundskeeper leaves it unlocked for his midnight smoke breaks. Sure enough, the gate opened with only a minor creak. They slipped through and found themselves on a narrow path leading into the surrounding forest. It's a 40-minute walk to the mansion from here, Wednesday said, setting a brisk pace. Unless you have magical transportation methods you haven't mentioned. Harry grimaced. Apparition, my world's teleportation, feels strange here. I tried while you were in the shower this morning and nearly splinched myself. I think the different magical laws interfere with the process. Fascinating, Wednesday replied, in a tone that suggested she'd like to experiment with this potentially fatal magical disruption at the earliest opportunity. They walked in comfortable silence through the forest, the moon providing adequate light once their eyes adjusted. Harry found himself surprisingly at ease, despite the circumstances. There was something refreshingly uncomplicated about Wednesday's company. She neither needed constant reassurance nor felt compelled to fill silence with chatter. About halfway to the mansion, Harry sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a prickling at the back of his neck that years as an Auror had taught him to trust. We're being followed, he said quietly, not breaking stride. Since we left campus, Wednesday confirmed. At least 2 of them, keeping to our flanks. Harry was impressed she'd noticed without alerting him. Morrigan's creatures? Possibly. Wednesday casually reached into her pocket and withdrew what appeared to be a small crossbow pistol. Or campus security with a grudge. Either way, they'll regret their decision in approximately 30 seconds. Before Harry could question this timeline, a rustling came from their left. They both turned, Harry's wand raised, Wednesday's crossbow aimed, as a figure emerged from the underbrush. It wasn't one of Morrigan's white creatures, but Xavier, the boy from the Threshold Stone clearing. Behind him came a girl Harry vaguely recognized from the lunch table, Bianca, if he remembered correctly, with shimmering skin that caught the moonlight. I knew you were up to something, Xavier said, his expression a mix of triumph and concern. Sneaking off campus after Weems specifically warned about the woods. Stalking is generally considered impolite outside of predatory species, Wednesday replied coolly, lowering her crossbow slightly but not putting it away. What do you want, Xavier? To stop you from getting expelled. Or killed. His gaze shifted to Harry. There's something off about him. I can feel it, he doesn't belong here. Harry tensed, his grip tightening on his wand. If Xavier could sense dimensional differences through his psychic abilities, this could become complicated quickly. Perceptive, Wednesday acknowledged. But irrelevant to your concerns. Go back to campus, Xavier. Not happening, Xavier shook his head. Whatever you're involved in, is Adam's family business, Wednesday cut him off. Private, dangerous, and none of your concern. Bianca stepped forward, her voice placating. Wednesday, we're just worried. There's been weird energy all over campus since your cousin arrived. Xavier says it feels like reality is strained somehow. Harry and Wednesday exchanged glances, communicating silently through their bond. How much to reveal? How much was already suspected? Before they could decide, a low hissing sound came from deeper in the forest. Everyone froze, heads turning toward the noise. That's not a normal forest sound, Bianca whispered, her shimmering skin dimming slightly in what Harry guessed was a fear response. Harry raised his wand, scanning the darkness between trees. We need to move. Now. What is it? Xavier demanded, but fell silent as shapes began moving toward them, white, elongated figures with two wide mouths and empty eyes. Morrigan's scouts, Wednesday identified, raising her crossbow again. At least 6 of them. Who's Morrigan? Bianca asked, her voice rising in pitch. Ancient witch, interdimensional harvester, currently trying to kill us, Wednesday summarized briskly. Consider yourselves caught in the crossfire of family drama. The creatures moved closer, surrounding them in a loose circle. Harry positioned himself back-to-back with Wednesday, extending their defensive perimeter to include Xavier and Bianca almost by instinct. Stay close, he instructed the shocked teenagers. Whatever happens, don't run. They're faster than they look. What are they? Xavier asked, his earlier hostility forgotten in the face of immediate danger. Think of them as magical antibodies, Wednesday explained clinically. Designed to eliminate dimensional anomalies. Like Harry. I knew it, Xavier muttered. You're not from this world. Explanations later, Harry said as the first creature lunged forward. Stupefy. The red blast of his stunning spell caught the creature mid-leap, sending it tumbling backward. Unlike their previous encounters, however, it quickly regained its footing, apparently having adapted to his magic. Wednesday fired her crossbow, the bolt striking another creature in the chest. This had more effect, the creature dissolving into dust as in their earlier battles. They've evolved against your magic, she observed, but not against physical attacks combined with my family's enchantments. Noted, Harry said, grabbing a fallen branch and transfiguring it into a sword with a quick spell. Xavier, Bianca, get behind us. The 2 students needed no further encouragement, pressing close as Harry and Wednesday formed a defensive line. The creatures circled, more cautious now that they'd seen their companion destroyed. We need to combine our magic, Wednesday said, extending her free hand toward Harry. Like before. Harry nodded, grasping her hand while maintaining his grip on the transfigured sword. The now familiar surge of power flowed between them, stronger and more controlled than during their first accidental combination. Their auras merged, his silver, her black, creating a protective barrier around all 4 of them. This is impossible, Xavier breathed, his psychic sensitivity clearly allowing him to perceive their merged magic. You're sharing a magical core. Soulbound, Bianca identified, her eyes widening. That's old magic. Forbidden magic. Lecture us on magical ethics later, Wednesday suggested as the creatures attacked en masse, apparently sensing the building power. Harry and Wednesday moved in perfect synchronization, their combined magic flowing through both the sword and crossbow. Each strike now carried doubled power, Harry's blade cleaving through creatures as if they were made of paper, Wednesday's bolts exploding on impact to take out multiple targets at once. Xavier and Bianca weren't merely passive observers. To Harry's surprise, Xavier thrust his hands forward, generating some kind of psychic pulse that disoriented the creatures, while Bianca's skin began to glow with increasing brightness, the light seeming to burn the creatures when they approached her. Together, they made short work of the attacking force, until only 1 creature remained. Instead of attacking or fleeing, it opened its too wide mouth and spoke in a voice that chilled Harry's blood. The mistress comes, it hissed in Morrigan's distinctive tones. Your pitiful amulets cannot save you. What was bound can be harvested, what was stolen will be reclaimed. Wednesday aimed her crossbow at the creature's head. Tell your mistress we've already beaten her once. We'll do it again. She is renewed, the creature replied, its mouth stretching impossibly wider in a grotesque smile. Fed on fresh bonds, strengthened by ancient hatred. The mansion falls even now. Harry felt a jolt of alarm. The amulets, the creature's laugh was like grinding glass. Too late, children. Too late. Wednesday fired, the bolt striking true and reducing the messenger to dust. In the sudden silence, they all stood breathing heavily, the implications of the creature's warning sinking in. We need to get to the mansion now, Harry said urgently. If Morrigan's attacking, thing is there alone, Wednesday finished, her usual emotionless expression slipping to reveal genuine concern. Xavier stepped forward. I don't understand half of what's happening, but my car is parked just off campus. It's faster than walking. Wednesday hesitated only briefly before nodding. Acceptable. As they hurried through the forest toward Xavier's car, Bianca peppered them with questions that neither Harry nor Wednesday fully answered. The basics emerged: Harry from another dimension, accidentally summoned, soul-bound to Wednesday, hunted by an ancient witch, but they kept the details vague. Xavier's car turned out to be a sleek black motorcycle with an attached sidecar. You two take the bike, he said, handing Wednesday his keys. Bianca and I will follow in the sidecar. You trust me with your precious motorcycle? Wednesday asked, eyebrow raised. No, but I trust you to drive like hell to save your home, Xavier replied with unexpected perception. The journey to the Addams mansion took less than 15 minutes with Wednesday driving at speeds that would have terrified Harry if he hadn't spent years on racing brooms. They arrived to find the gates hanging from broken hinges and an ominous green glow emanating from within the house. Stay here, Harry instructed Xavier and Bianca as they pulled up behind them in the sidecar. Like hell, Xavier replied, climbing out. We're already involved. Your funeral, Wednesday shrugged, already striding toward the mansion. Inside, the damage was extensive. Furniture lay shattered, walls bore scorch marks, and several of the animated suits of armor had been dismembered. Thing was nowhere to be seen. The conservatory, Wednesday said, heading for the back of the house with determined steps. The vault is underneath. They made their way through the wreckage, Harry's wand and Wednesday's crossbow at the ready. Xavier and Bianca followed, the former's psychic abilities apparently allowing him to sense danger before it appeared, as he twice warned them of collapsing debris in time to avoid it. The conservatory, already damaged from their earlier battle, was now completely destroyed. Plants lay uprooted, many still moving weakly as if in pain. The glass ceiling was entirely gone, allowing the night sky to peer down at the devastation. There, Wednesday pointed to a section of floor that appeared intact amidst the chaos. The vault entrance. They approached cautiously, alert for traps or remaining enemies. Wednesday knelt beside what looked like an ordinary stone tile and pressed her palm against it, murmuring something in a language Harry didn't recognize. The tile glowed briefly, then slid aside to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Lumos, Harry murmured, his wand tip igniting to provide light as they descended. The vault was smaller than Harry had expected, a single room with stone walls lined with shelves holding various artifacts, books, and containers. Unlike the mansion above, it appeared untouched by the attack. The amulets should be here, Wednesday said, moving directly to a specific shelf and removing a small ebony box. She opened it carefully to reveal 4 medallions made of what looked like tarnished silver, each engraved with symbols similar to those from the binding ritual. 4 of them, Harry observed. Convenient, since we have 4 people now. Grandmother believes in preparedness, Wednesday replied, distributing the amulets. One never knows when multiple family members might be soul-bound simultaneously. Xavier examined his medallion with obvious fascination. These symbols are Proto-Etruscan. Combined with, is that demonic Enochian script? Wednesday raised an eyebrow, seemingly reassessing her opinion of him. Correct. The Addams family has always appreciated multicultural approaches to the dark arts. Bianca slipped her amulet around her neck, then frowned as something on a nearby shelf caught her attention. What's that? They all turned to see a small crystal sphere glowing with pulsating red light. A warning beacon, Wednesday identified, her expression darkening. It only activates when, a slow clap interrupted her, echoing down the stairs from the conservatory above. They spun to find Morrigan standing in the vault doorway, looking far more substantial than during their previous encounter. Her age shifting had stabilized, leaving her appearing as a woman in her prime, beautiful and terrible. "Clever children," she said, her voice rich with malicious amusement. "Finding Desdemona's little toys before I could destroy them." Harry stepped forward, positioning himself partially in front of the others. "How did you get past the vault's protections?" "Blood recognizes blood, wizard." Morrigan gestured to a cut on her palm. "Your little Wednesday and I share an ancestor. The vault recognized me as family." Wednesday's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. The Addams line is pure." Morrigan laughed. "Oh, child. Your ancestor Goody Addams was my half-sister. Why do you think the ritual called you so strongly? Why do you think you succeeded where others failed?" This revelation hit Wednesday like a physical blow. Harry could feel her shock through their bond. "Enough family history," Morrigan continued, stepping into the vault. "Those amulets won't save you. They might have worked against lesser bindings, but what connects you two transcends Desdemona's amateur protections. We defeated you before," Harry reminded her, raising his wand. "We can do it again." "You caught me by surprise," Morrigan acknowledged. "A mistake I won't repeat." Her gaze shifted to Xavier and Bianca. "And you've brought me a bonus. The psychic boy will make a delicious appetizer before I feast on your bound souls." Xavier tensed, stepping slightly in front of Bianca. "Lady, I don't know who you think you are, but, she's Morrigan Blackwood," Wednesday interrupted, her composure regained. "Creator of the soul-binding ritual, consumer of combined essences, and apparently, my very distant aunt." "A family reunion," Morrigan smiled coldly. "How touching." She raised her hands, dark energy gathering around her fingers. Harry felt the familiar pull of her power, similar to a Dementor's effect but more focused, directly targeting the bond he shared with Wednesday. "The amulets," he shouted. "Activate them." Wednesday pressed her medallion, triggering a pulse of protective magic that spread to encompass all four of them. Morrigan's attack struck this barrier and rebounded partially, causing her to stagger but not fall. "Interesting," she hissed. "Desdemona's work was always irritating." "We need to get out of here," Bianca whispered urgently. "The amulets won't hold forever." She was right. Harry could feel the protective field weakening under Morrigan's sustained assault. They were trapped in the vault with only one exit, blocked by their enemy. "Options?" Harry asked Wednesday through their bond. She glanced around rapidly, then focused on a particular shelf behind Morrigan. "The black urn. Third shelf. If broken, creates a temporary dimensional rift." "Escape route," Harry confirmed, understanding immediately. He caught Xavier's eye and made a subtle gesture toward Morrigan. The psychic boy nodded, somehow understanding the unspoken plan. "Now!" Harry called. Xavier thrust both hands forward, releasing a blast of psychic energy that struck Morrigan directly. She stumbled, momentarily disoriented by the mental assault. In that instant, Harry fired a precise reducto curse at the urn Wednesday had indicated, while Bianca flared her light to maximum brightness, temporarily blinding everyone in the vault. The urn shattered, and reality seemed to tear open behind Morrigan, a swirling vortex of darkness and light that pulled at everything nearby. "Go!" Harry shouted, grabbing Wednesday's hand. They rushed forward together, their combined momentum carrying them past the stunned Morrigan and into the rift. Xavier and Bianca followed, the four of them tumbling into swirling chaos as Morrigan's enraged scream faded behind them. For a moment, Harry felt nothing but disorientation as they fell through what seemed like endless space. Then, with jarring suddenness, they crashed onto solid ground, a stone floor in a circular chamber lit by flickering torches. "Where are we?" Bianca gasped, climbing shakily to her feet. Wednesday was already standing, examining their surroundings with clinical interest. The Nevermore catacombs. Beneath the library. Harry followed her gaze, recognizing the chamber they'd landed in as some kind of ancient meeting room. Stone benches formed a circle around a central dais carved with symbols that reminded him of the Threshold Stone. "How did we end up here?" Xavier asked, rubbing his head where he'd struck it during their landing. "The urn was linked to Nevermore's foundations," Wednesday explained. "A family escape mechanism installed when my great-grandfather served on the school board. The dimensional rift automatically redirects to the nearest safe location connected to Adam's blood." Harry moved to her side, lowering his voice. "Will Morrigan be able to follow us?" "Not immediately," Wednesday replied. "But she'll track us eventually. The rift closes after use, but she has other methods." They gathered in the center of the chamber, all showing signs of the night's ordeal, torn clothes, minor injuries, exhausted expressions. The amulets still hung around their necks, though their protective glow had faded to a dull pulse. "Okay," Xavier said, crossing his arms. "I think we deserve the full story now." Wednesday glanced at Harry, who nodded slightly. They needed allies, and Xavier and Bianca had proven themselves in the fight. "The abbreviated version," Wednesday began, "is that I performed a ritual to summon a magical complement from another dimension. It brought Harry here and bound our souls together. Morrigan created the original ritual centuries ago and now hunts bound pairs to consume their combined essence, extending her life and power. That's why she seems stronger than before," Harry added. "She's found other bound pairs to feed on. And now she wants you too," Bianca concluded. "Because your bond is particularly powerful." "Precisely," Wednesday confirmed. "The amulets provide temporary protection, but they won't stop her permanently." Xavier paced the chamber, processing this information. "So what's the plan? Keep running until she catches us?" "No," Harry said firmly. "We find a way to break our bond safely, sending me back to my dimension and removing Morrigan's target." A flicker of emotion passed through his connection with Wednesday, something complex and quickly suppressed. He glanced at her, but her expression remained impassive. "The Threshold Stone," she said after a moment. "It's our best option. Combined with what we've learned from Morrigan's notes and the family grimoire, we might be able to reverse the ritual." "But Weems increased security in the East Woods," Bianca pointed out. "We're already in the catacombs," Wednesday countered. "There are tunnels connecting to every part of campus, including the Eastern Woods." She moved to one of the chamber walls, pressing specific stones in sequence. A section of wall slid aside, revealing a narrow passageway lit by phosphorescent fungi. "How do you know all these secret passages?" Xavier asked, clearly impressed despite himself. "I make it my business to know every possible escape route wherever I go," Wednesday replied. "A survival strategy frequently vindicated by circumstances." They gathered what little they had, Harry's wand, Wednesday's crossbow, their amulets, and a torch Xavier pulled from a wall bracket, and entered the passageway. Wednesday led confidently, navigating the twisting tunnels as if she'd used them frequently. "These catacombs date back to Nevermore's founding," she explained as they walked. "Originally used for secret ceremonies during periods of witch persecution. Now they're mainly used for illegal parties and clandestine make-out sessions," Bianca added with a slight smile. "How pedestrian," Wednesday commented, though Harry sensed a hint of amusement through their bond. The tunnels gradually sloped upward, the air growing fresher as they approached the surface. After about 20 minutes of walking, Wednesday stopped at a dead end. "We're here," she announced, pressing her palm against a carved symbol that matched the one on her amulet. The walls slid open, revealing moonlight and forest beyond. They emerged into the clearing containing the threshold stone, which glowed more brightly under the full moon than during their daytime visit. The fairy circle of mushrooms around it pulsed with subtle light, creating an atmosphere of ancient magic that Harry found strangely familiar. The moon's at apex, Wednesday observed, checking her watch. Perfect timing. They approached the stone cautiously. Harry could feel its power responding to their presence, specifically to the bond between him and Wednesday. The carved symbols seemed to shift slightly when he looked directly at them, rearranging into patterns that almost made sense before becoming incomprehensible again. What now? Xavier asked, staying back with Bianca while Harry and Wednesday examined the stone. We combine what we know, Wednesday replied, kneeling beside the stone. The original ritual pulled Harry through during a blood moon. According to Morrigan's notes, dimensional crossing points are strongest when the moon is full. The stone seems to recognize our bond, Harry added, feeling the magical resonance between the artifact and their connection. It's responding to our combined essence. Wednesday opened her satchel, which had somehow remained with her through everything, and removed the family grimoire. She flipped to the ritual that had started everything, studying it in the moonlight. The reversal requires 3 elements, she recited. Blood from both bound individuals, essence of their shared magic, and a catalyst called the recognition of true purpose. Blood and magic we can provide, Harry said. But what's the true purpose? Wednesday frowned, continuing to read. Morrigan's notes suggest it refers to understanding why the binding occurred in the first place. Not just the mechanical how, but the metaphysical why. Xavier stepped forward, his psychic sensitivity apparently allowing him to perceive something about the stone. This thing is old, older than Nevermore, older than your ritual book. It's a natural thinning point between worlds. Can it send me back? Harry asked directly. Xavier hesitated. Maybe. But there's something else you should know. He glanced between Harry and Wednesday. Your bond, I can see it, like a cord connecting you. It's not just magical, it looks permanent. Breaking it might. Might what? Harry pressed when Xavier trailed off. Might damage you both, the psychic boy finished reluctantly. Permanently. A heavy silence fell over the clearing. Harry looked at Wednesday, whose expression remained unreadable, though through their bond he sensed turmoil beneath her composed exterior. We still have to try, Harry said finally. I have responsibilities, people waiting for me. A life to return to. Wednesday nodded, her emotions locked down so tightly even their bond revealed little. Of course. Let's proceed. She opened the grimoire to the reversal ritual, arranging components around the threshold stone while Harry watched, a growing unease building inside him. Was this really what he wanted? To sever their connection completely? To never again experience the unique synchronicity they developed? But what choice did they have? He belonged in his world, with his friends, his work as an Auror. This wasn't his reality, no matter how quickly he'd adapted to its strangeness. The ritual requires both of us to contribute blood, Wednesday instructed, interrupting his thoughts. Directly onto the stone. Harry nodded, drawing his wand across his palm in a practiced motion, opening a shallow cut. Wednesday used a small silver knife from her satchel to do the same. Together, they held their bleeding hands over the threshold stone, allowing their blood to mingle as it dripped onto the carved surface. The stone absorbed the blood instantly, its glow intensifying from white to red. The symbols carved into its surface began to move more rapidly, rearranging themselves into new patterns. Next, we need to contribute our combined magic, Wednesday continued, reading from the grimoire. A pure expression of the bond's power. Harry took her uninjured hand in his, initiating the now familiar connection between their magical cores. The silver-black energy formed around them, stronger than ever in the presence of the threshold stone, which seemed to amplify their natural resonance. Focus on the essence of our connection, Wednesday murmured. Not just the power, but what it represents. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the bond they shared, the way their magics complemented each other, her precision balancing his intuition, his warmth tempering her coldness. Together, they directed a stream of this combined essence into the stone. The threshold stone's glow shifted again, now pulsing with silver and black light that matched their aura. The fairy circle expanded, mushrooms growing and multiplying until they surrounded all four teenagers. "It's working," Xavier whispered, his psychic sensitivity allowing him to perceive the dimensional energies gathering. "The barrier between worlds is thinning." "The final component," Wednesday read, her voice steady despite the magical maelstrom building around them. "The recognition of true purpose. We must understand why the ritual connected us specifically." Harry frowned, thinking back to the moment of his arrival. "You said you were seeking a magical complement, someone whose powers would balance yours." "Yes," Wednesday confirmed. "The ritual was supposed to call forth my perfect magical opposite from across dimensions. And it chose me," Harry mused. "But why? There must be countless magic users across realities. Why me specifically?" Wednesday hesitated, then admitted, "The ritual requires alignment not just of magic, but of spirit. A resonance beyond power alone." Harry felt something shift in their bond, a wall lowering, revealing emotions Wednesday had kept carefully hidden, loneliness, a deep-seated desire for understanding, a recognition of something in Harry that matched her own isolated existence. "You were alone," Harry said softly, understanding dawning. "Like me. Different from everyone around you. Carrying responsibilities others couldn't understand." Wednesday didn't deny it. Through their bond, Harry sensed her acknowledgement of this truth. "The boy who lived and the girl who embraced death," she said quietly. "Perhaps there's a certain symmetry in that." The threshold stone's glow intensified, the carved symbols now moving so quickly they appeared as bands of light rather than distinct markings. A humming filled the clearing, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. "Something's happening," Bianca said, backing away slightly. "Is this normal?" Before anyone could answer, a familiar voice cut through the magical energies surrounding them. "How touching. The children have discovered their connection. Just in time for me to harvest it." They turned to see Morrigan standing at the edge of the clearing, her form more solid and powerful than ever. Her eyes glowed with the same red light as the threshold stone, suggesting she had somehow connected to its power. "Your persistence is becoming tedious," Wednesday said coolly, though Harry felt her alarm through their bond. "Family trait," Morrigan replied with a cold smile. "One you clearly inherited, distant niece." She raised her hands, and tendrils of dark energy shot toward them. The amulets around their necks activated instantly, creating a protective barrier, but Harry could see it wouldn't hold for long against Morrigan's enhanced power. "Complete the ritual," Xavier shouted, stepping forward with Bianca to place themselves between Morrigan and the threshold stone. "We'll hold her off." Harry met Wednesday's eyes, an unspoken question passing between them. She nodded slightly, and they turned back to the stone, hands still joined. "The true purpose," Harry said urgently. "We need to understand it completely." Wednesday's grip tightened on his hand. "The ritual doesn't just create a bond, it creates balance. What one lacks, the other provides." "A perfect complementary pair," Harry agreed. "But what's the purpose of that balance?" Through their bond, memories flashed between them, the shared dream of Morrigan's original ritual, her desperate attempt to save her dying lover, the failure that drove her to madness. Healing, Wednesday realized suddenly. The original purpose wasn't power or knowledge, it was healing. Morrigan tried to save Darian by binding their life forces. But she pulled in a stranger instead, Harry continued the thought. Someone who couldn't share the connection Darian needed. They looked at Morrigan, who was systematically breaking through the protective barrier despite Xavier's psychic attacks and Bianca's blinding light. The ancient witch's face was contorted with rage and determination, but beneath that, Harry could now see the endless grief that had driven her for centuries. "She's been trying to recapture what she lost," Wednesday said softly. consuming bound pairs to fill the void Darian's death created. That's the recognition, Harry said with sudden certainty. The ritual's true purpose was healing through balanced connection, not power, not knowledge, but completion. The threshold stone pulsed in response, its glow changing from red to gold. A column of light shot upward from its center, expanding outward to create a swirling portal above the stone. Harry Potter, a voice spoke from within the portal, not Morrigan's, but something older, deeper, seemingly emanating from the stone itself. Your world calls to you. The path is open. Harry stared at the portal, seeing glimpses of his reality beyond, Hogwarts Castle, the Ministry of Magic, familiar faces looking for him. Home. He turned to Wednesday, whose expression remained carefully neutral despite the emotions he could feel churning through their bond, resignation, understanding, and something deeper she refused to name. This is it, he said. I can go home. Yes, she agreed simply. That was always the goal. Behind them, Morrigan let out a roar of rage, summoning more power to break through the weakening barrier. No. I won't allow it. Xavier stumbled back, blood trickling from his nose as his psychic attacks taxed his strength. Whatever you're going to do it fast. Harry looked from the portal to Wednesday, then to Morrigan. A decision crystallized in his mind, clear, unexpected, but somehow right. Wednesday, he said. The true purpose is healing, yes. She nodded, confusion flickering through their bond. Then maybe we should complete that purpose before I go. Harry turned toward Morrigan, pulling Wednesday with him. We need to heal what was broken. Understanding dawned in Wednesday's eyes. Like we did before, in the graveyard. But stronger. Harry nodded. If we break the bond without addressing what called us together in the first place, the cycle continues, Wednesday finished. Morrigan finds another pair, consumes them, hunts more. Exactly. Harry squeezed her hand. Ready? In response, Wednesday lowered her remaining mental barriers completely. Their bond flared with unprecedented strength, their combined magic swirling around them in a perfect blend of silver and black. Together, they turned to face Morrigan, who had finally broken through the protective barrier and now advanced toward them, hands outstretched to drain their essence. What are you doing? She demanded, sensing something had changed. The portal is open. Flee if you wish, I'll find other bound pairs. No, Harry and Wednesday said in unison, their voices overlapping in perfect harmony. You won't. They raised their free hands, directing their combined power not as a weapon, but as a healing force. The silver-black energy streamed toward Morrigan, surrounding her in a cocoon of light. No, she screamed, trying to fight the energy. I don't want healing. I want power. You want Darian, Wednesday corrected gently, her usual coldness replaced by understanding. You've always wanted Darian. And punishing countless others won't bring him back, Harry added. You corrupted your own ritual out of grief, turning creation into consumption. Morrigan struggled against their magic, but the power of their perfectly synchronized bond, amplified by the threshold stone, was too strong for even her centuries of accumulated power to resist. Let him go, Wednesday urged. Let Darian rest. Let yourself rest. Something broke in Morrigan's expression, a wall of rage and bitterness maintained for centuries crumbling in an instant. Her struggles weakened, and tears formed in her ancient eyes. I just wanted to save him, she whispered, suddenly looking small and vulnerable despite her power. I loved him so much. We know, Harry said softly. But this isn't the way. Their healing magic intensified, washing over Morrigan in waves. Her form began to change, not disintegrating as before, but transforming. The unnatural youth faded, revealing her true age, her true self. I'm so tired, she murmured, her voice quavering. So very tired. With those words, something released within her. The stolen power she'd accumulated over centuries flowed outward, returning to its sources across dimensions. Her form grew transparent, less substantial, until she appeared as little more than a ghost, an old woman with sad eyes and a gentle smile. "Thank you," she breathed, looking past Harry and Wednesday towards something only she could see. A masculine figure seemed to shimmer briefly in the air beside her, Darian, reaching for her hand. At last. And then she was gone, not in violence or destruction, but in a quiet dissolution, like mist under morning sun. Where she had stood, only a small silver locket remained, the same one they had found after their first encounter with her. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the humming of the still active portal above the threshold stone. Harry and Wednesday turned back to it, their hands still joined, their bond still humming with power. "That was incredible," Bianca said softly, helping Xavier to his feet. "You didn't destroy her, you freed her." "The true purpose," Xavier nodded, understanding despite his exhaustion. "Healing the original wound." Harry looked at the portal, then at Wednesday. Her usual impassive expression was back in place, but through their bond, he felt her conflicted emotions, relief that Morrigan was gone, satisfaction at solving the mystery, but also a deep sadness she wouldn't verbally acknowledge. "The path remains open," the voice from the portal announced. "Harry Potter must choose." Harry took a deep breath, looking from the portal to Wednesday. "If I go through, the bond will break," she confirmed, her voice steady. "The distance between dimensions is too great to maintain it." He nodded, feeling the truth of this. "And you'll be okay? With the bond breaking?" Wednesday raised an eyebrow, her expression deliberately casual. "I survived 16 years without being soul-bound to a dimension-hopping wizard. I expect I'll manage." But through their bond, Harry felt what she wouldn't say, that she had discovered something unique in their connection, a perfect understanding she had never experienced before. That losing it would leave a void. He felt the same. "I have to go back," he said softly. "People are waiting for me. Responsibilities." "Of course," Wednesday agreed. "Your world needs its chosen hero." Harry glanced at the portal, then back to her. "Wednesday, don't get sentimental," she cut him off. "It doesn't suit either of us." Harry smiled despite everything. "No, I suppose not." He took a step toward the portal, feeling its pull growing stronger. Their hands remained joined, the bond between them vibrating with tension as it stretched between his movement and her stillness. In that moment, with one foot almost in his world and one still in hers, Harry made a decision. He turned back to Wednesday, whose expression finally betrayed a hint of the emotion roiling through their bond. "What if there's a third option?" he asked suddenly. Her eyebrow rose slightly. "Explain." "The portal is open. The bond is active. What if instead of breaking it by going through alone?" He squeezed her hand. "You came with me?" "Just to visit," he added quickly. "To see my world. Then we could return here together, or decide what to do next." Wednesday blinked, the closest thing to shock her face had shown through everything they'd experienced. "Visit, your dimension?" she repeated. "Why not? You performed the ritual seeking new magical knowledge, didn't you? What better source than an entire world of different magic?" Harry grinned. "Besides, I think Hermione would absolutely lose her mind meeting you." Through their bond, he felt her considering the idea, weighing the unknown against the familiar, adventure against safety. It was so essentially Wednesday, this methodical evaluation, that Harry couldn't help but smile wider. "Principal Weems would be extremely displeased if I disappeared mid-semester," she said finally. "Probably," Harry agreed. "Mother would worry. We could leave a note. Your world might reject me as a foreign magical entity. Or it might find you fascinating." Wednesday was silent for a moment longer, then the corner of her mouth twitched upward in what Harry now recognized as her version of a smile. It would be a waste to sever a perfectly functional soul bond without fully exploring its research potential, she concluded. Harry laughed. "Is that a yes?" It's a provisional acceptance of your proposal, Wednesday clarified. Subject to revision based on empirical evidence. Close enough, Harry said, squeezing her hand again. They turned to Xavier and Bianca, who had been watching this exchange with expressions ranging from confusion to amusement. You're both insane, Xavier stated flatly. Traveling between dimensions on a whim? Says the boy who stalked us through the woods to satisfy his curiosity, Wednesday countered. Will you come back? Bianca asked more practically. Wednesday nodded. Eventually. Someone needs to continue my research on reanimating the dead squirrels on campus. I'll tell Enid you're on a family emergency, Bianca promised. Though I don't think she'll believe the whole interdimensional travel part. Tell her I'm visiting relatives in Europe, Wednesday suggested. It's not entirely inaccurate, considering Harry's accent. With goodbyes exchanged, Harry and Wednesday turned back to the portal, which continued to pulse with golden light above the threshold stone. Ready? Harry asked. Wednesday adjusted her black dress and straightened her posture. I was born ready. Literally. I emerged from the womb with a fully developed skepticism of existence. Harry laughed and tightened his grip on her hand. Together, they stepped forward into the swirling golden light. The portal embraced them, drawing them upward in a rush of wind and magic. For a moment, they existed between worlds, neither here nor there, connected only to each other through the silver-black bond that pulsed between them. Harry felt Wednesday's consciousness pressed against his, her analytical mind cataloging every sensation of interdimensional travel with fascinated precision. Then reality reasserted itself, and they were falling. They landed with a thud on hard stone floor, not in a forest clearing, but in a circular room with high windows and silver instruments whirring on tables. The headmaster's office at Hogwarts. Several people who had been gathered around a large map looked up in shock. Harry recognized them immediately, McGonagall, Ron, Hermione, several Aurors, and to his surprise, Luna Lovegood. Harry! Hermione shrieked, rushing forward. Oh my God, you're alive! Bloody hell, mate, Ron exclaimed. Where have you been? You just vanished in the middle of the raid 3 days ago. McGonagall pressed a hand to her chest. Mr. Potter. You have once again taken several years off my life with your dramatic return from apparent death. Harry climbed to his feet, helping Wednesday up beside him. All eyes turned to the pale girl in the black dress who regarded the gathered wizards and witches with clinical interest. Everyone, Harry said, unable to suppress a grin at the absurdity of it all, I'd like you to meet Wednesday Addams. She accidentally summoned me across dimensions and bound our souls together. Wednesday gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Charmed, I'm sure. Your dimensional transition boundaries are surprisingly permeable. You might want to address that security vulnerability. There was a moment of stunned silence, broken when Luna stepped forward with a dreamy smile. Oh, I like her, she declared. She has the aura of someone who's had extensive conversations with the dead. Wednesday raised an eyebrow, reassessing Luna with newfound interest. Actually, yes. Though they rarely have anything intelligent to say. The afterlife apparently dulls conversational skills. Ron turned to Harry, his expression a perfect blend of confusion and resignation. 3 days. You've been gone 3 days, and you've come back with a gothic teenager who talks like a young female Snape. Actually, Harry replied with a smile, putting his arm around Wednesday's shoulders, I think this is just the beginning of a very interesting cultural exchange program. Through their bond, he felt Wednesday's reluctant amusement and growing curiosity about this new world she found herself in, a world of wands and house elves, of moving staircases and enchanted ceilings. A world that, for however long they chose to maintain their unique connection, they would explore together. Mr. Potter, McGonagall sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose, I believe this calls for a very detailed explanation. And tea, Hermione added, still staring at Wednesday with undisguised fascination. Lots of tea. Do you have any hemlock? Wednesday inquired politely. I find it settles the stomach after interdimensional travel. As the reunions and introductions continued around them, Harry and Wednesday exchanged a glance, their bond humming with shared understanding. Whatever happened next, whatever they decided about their future and the soul bond connecting them, one thing was certain, both their worlds had just become significantly more interesting. Chapter 3, Shadows Unite, You Brought Back a What? Ron's voice echoed through Harry's small London flat 3 days after their dramatic arrival at Hogwarts. A soul-bound interdimensional companion, Wednesday replied before Harry could answer. She sat perfectly straight on Harry's worn sofa, examining a copy of the Daily Prophet with clinical interest. Though that terminology lacks precision regarding the metaphysical complexities involved. Harry hid a smile as Ron's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and resignation. After years of friendship with Harry Potter, the red-headed Auror had developed an impressive capacity to accept the bizarre, but Wednesday Addams was testing even those well-established limits. Right, Ron muttered, collapsing into an armchair. And how long is she staying? Indefinitely, Wednesday answered, turning a page. Your newspaper's moving photographs are primitive but intriguing. The subjects lack sentience yet demonstrate rudimentary emotional responses. Hermione entered from the kitchen carrying a tray of tea things. Actually, wizarding photographs contain echoes of the subject's personality at the moment of capture. They're not truly conscious but exist in a fascinating liminal state between animation and sentience. Wednesday looked up, genuine interest flickering in her dark eyes. A quantum consciousness imprint. Fascinating. Oh no, Ron groaned. There's 2 of them now. Harry laughed, accepting a cup of tea from Hermione. The past 3 days had been a whirlwind of debriefings at the ministry, explanations to friends, and introducing Wednesday to his world. To his surprise, she had adapted to magical Britain with remarkable ease, observing everything with the same detached curiosity she seemed to apply to all of existence. The Auror office is still processing your report, Hermione said, sitting beside Wednesday. Interdimensional travel falls under the Department of Mystery's jurisdiction, but since you're an Auror, they're arguing about who has authority. Bureaucracy transcends dimensional boundaries, Wednesday commented. How disappointingly predictable. Harry nodded, having spent most of yesterday answering an endless series of questions from increasingly bewildered officials. Any word on those Death Eaters I was tracking before Wednesday summoned me? Captured, Ron confirmed. After you vanished, the entire department mobilized. We caught them trying to flee to the continent. Relief washed through Harry. At least his abrupt departure hadn't allowed dark wizards to escape. And the soul bond? Hermione asked delicately, her eyes flickering between Harry and Wednesday. Have you made any progress understanding it? Harry felt Wednesday's attention sharpen through their connection. The bond had changed since coming to his world, less physically restrictive. They could now separate about 50 feet before pain began, but somehow deeper, more permanently integrated. It's stabilizing, Harry explained. We can go longer without direct contact, but the magical connection seems stronger. Your world's ambient magic provides consistent reinforcement, Wednesday added. The background thaumaturgical field here maintains a higher baseline resonance than my dimension. Hermione nodded enthusiastically. That makes sense. Our reality has an established network of magical currents, ley lines, focused magical communities, centuries of spellwork layered into the environment. Ron looked between them. So, is that good or bad? Both, Harry and Wednesday answered simultaneously. The reinforcement makes the bond more stable and controllable, Harry explained. But potentially more difficult to sever if that becomes necessary, Wednesday finished. Hermione's expression turned serious. And is that the goal? To break the bond? Harry and Wednesday exchanged a glance, a wealth of unspoken communication passing between them. They hadn't discussed their long-term plans explicitly, both tacitly agreeing to focus on more immediate concerns. We're exploring options, Harry said finally. Research before conclusions, Wednesday added. A methodical approach to an unprecedented magical phenomenon. Ron snorted. Yeah, that sounds like Harry. Always careful and methodical. Harry threw a cushion at his friend. Some of us learn from experience. The light moment was interrupted when a silvery lynx Patronus leapt through the window, stopping in the center of the room. Kingsley Shacklebolt's deep voice emerged from the spectral creature. Harry, we've detected unusual magical activity at the Department of Mysteries. Something is attempting to breach the dimensional barriers. Your presence requested immediately. The Patronus dissolved, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Morrigan, Harry and Wednesday said together, already standing. Who? Hermione asked, but Harry was already grabbing his wand and jacket. The witch who created the soul-binding ritual, he explained rapidly. She follows bound pairs across dimensions to harvest their power. She consumes souls. Ron looked horrified. Soul energy, Wednesday corrected, gathering her own belongings, including a small crossbow she'd somehow smuggled into Britain. Specifically, the unique magical resonance created by complementary bound pairs. And she's found us, Harry finished grimly. Faster than I expected. Hermione was already moving toward the fireplace. We'll take the Fleur to the Ministry. It's faster than apparition with the current security protocols. Wednesday observed the green flames Hermione conjured with academic interest. Convenient transportation network. Vastly more efficient than dismembered hand messengers. Ron mouthed dismembered hand messengers at Harry, who just shook his head. Some aspects of Wednesday's world were better left unexplained. They crowded into the fireplace, and with a shout of Ministry of Magic from Harry, the green flames engulfed them, spinning them through the Fleur network toward the heart of Wizarding Britain's government. They emerged into chaos. The Ministry's grand atrium was filled with running officials, magical alarms blaring from multiple directions. Kingsley himself stood near the security desk, directing orders with the calm authority that had made him such an effective minister. Potter, he acknowledged as they approached. Ms. Adams. The situation has escalated. What's happening? Harry asked, automatically slipping into aura mode. Something is attempting to tear through the fabric of reality in the Department of Mysteries, Kingsley explained. The unspeakables say it's originating from another dimension. What room? Wednesday asked sharply. The Death Chamber, Kingsley replied, giving her an appraising look. You know something about this? Wednesday nodded. Death resonates across dimensional boundaries. The veil provides a natural weak point for someone with Morrigan's abilities to exploit. Harry felt a chill. The Death Chamber, where Sirius had fallen through the veil. Of course Morrigan would target a place already connected to death and dimensional transition. We need to get down there, he said urgently. Kingsley nodded. I've cleared you for access. Weasley, Granger, you go as backup. They hurried to the elevators, descending to the Department of Mysteries' dark corridors. The air grew heavier with each level they descended, charged with magical energy that made Harry's skin prickle. Through their bond, he felt Wednesday's mind working rapidly, analyzing the sensations and formulating theories. The dimensional breach is accelerating, she said as they approached the revolving door entrance. Morrigan has grown stronger since our last encounter. How? Hermione asked. If you defeated her in your world, we didn't destroy her essence, Wednesday explained. We transformed it, releasing her from her corruption. But the fundamental energy remained in the multiverse. And now she's reconstituted herself, Harry finished the thought. Drawing on interdimensional magic to reform. They entered the circular room with identical doors, but before it could begin spinning, Harry stepped forward confidently. Death Chamber, he commanded, and one door immediately stopped before them. Convenient, Wednesday commented. Your ministry's security protocols are surprisingly responsive to clear intentions. They pushed through the door into the Death Chamber, where the ancient stone archway stood on its dais, the tattered veil hanging motionless despite the magical maelstrom surrounding it. A team of unspeakables worked frantically at the chamber's perimeter, casting containment spells that shimmered visibly in the air. Potter, called an unspeakable Harry recognized as Croaker, the department head. "Thank Merlin. Something's coming through, and our barriers are failing." As if triggered by his words, the veil suddenly billowed outward, though no physical wind disturbed the chamber. The whispers that always emanated from behind it grew louder, forming words in a language Harry couldn't understand but that sent chills through his body. Wednesday, however, seemed to comprehend. "Enochian death incantations," she murmured, stepping closer to the dais despite Harry's instinctive attempt to hold her back. "She's using the voices of the dead to create a dimensional anchor." The veil bulged unnaturally, the fabric of reality visibly straining around the archway. Cracks appeared in the ancient stone, glowing with unnatural green light that reminded Harry uncomfortably of the killing curse. "Everyone clear the chamber," Harry shouted to the unspeakables. "This is beyond containment." Most needed no encouragement, already retreating toward the exits. Croaker hesitated. "Potter, that archway has stood for millennia. If it's destroyed, then your department gets to study a new interdimensional phenomenon," Wednesday cut in. "Evacuate now, or become part of said phenomenon." Something in her tone convinced him, and Croaker retreated with his remaining staff, leaving only Harry, Wednesday, Ron, and Hermione in the chamber with the increasingly unstable veil. "What's the plan?" Ron asked, wand raised defensively. Before anyone could answer, the veil ripped open with a sound like reality itself tearing. The archway shuddered, ancient stone cracking further as a swirling vortex formed where the tattered fabric had hung. A figure stepped through, not Morrigan as they expected, but one of her white, elongated servants. Its too wide mouth opened in a silent scream as it fully materialized in the chamber. "Stupefy!" Harry and Ron shouted together, their spells striking the creature simultaneously. The combined magic knocked it backward but didn't incapacitate it. The creature regained its footing, its head swiveling unnaturally to focus on Harry and Wednesday. "The bound pair," it hissed in Morrigan's voice. "My mistress comes for what is hers. She's using them as interdimensional scouts," Wednesday observed. "Testing the stability of the crossing." Hermione raised her wand. "Incarcerus." Thick ropes shot out, wrapping around the creature, but it simply dissolved the bindings with a touch, its fingers secreting some kind of acidic substance. "Conventional magic has limited effect," Wednesday noted. "We need our combined power." Harry nodded, reaching for her hand. The connection snapped into place instantly, their magic flowing together with practiced ease. The silver-black energy formed around them, and with a shared gesture, they sent a blast of combined power toward the creature. The impact was immediate and final, the creature collapsed into dust just as its companions had in Wednesday's world. But the vortex in the archway continued to grow, pulsating with sickly green light. "The breach is still expanding," Hermione shouted over the rising magical wind that now circled the chamber. "Closing it will require more than just defeating her servants." Wednesday turned to Harry, their bond thrumming with shared realization. "We need the original grimoire," she said. "The complete ritual text contains the fundamental magical equations that created these interdimensional pathways." "But it's in your world," Harry pointed out. "In the Addams family crypt." "Not exactly," Wednesday corrected. "What we used was a copy. The original grimoire exists in a pocket dimension, a magical repository created by the first Addams which to protect the family's most dangerous knowledge." Ron looked between them incredulously. "So we need to go to another dimension to get a book to stop someone from another dimension from coming into our dimension?" "Precisely," Wednesday confirmed. "Your grasp of the situation is rudimentary but accurate. How do we access this pocket dimension?" Hermione asked practically. Wednesday's expression turned grave. "Through there." She pointed at the vortex swirling where the veil had been. "Morrigan is using interdimensional currents to reach this world. Those same currents connect to all magical dimensions, including the Addams repository. Harry understood immediately. We have to go through Morrigan's breach to reach the grimoire. That's mental, Ron protested. You'd be heading straight toward her. Actually, Hermione interjected, her brilliant mind clearly racing, it's not entirely illogical. Dimensional breaches create multiple pathways, like a river with tributaries. If they can enter the stream but divert to a different destination, the soul bond would act as a compass. Wednesday finished. Harry's connection to this world combined with my connection to the Adams lineage would guide us to the repository instead of Morrigan. Another creature began to emerge from the vortex, followed by a second and third. Harry dispatched them with quick blasts of combined magic with Wednesday, but it was clear more would follow. She's sending her army ahead, Harry said grimly. We're running out of time. So what's the plan? Ron demanded. You two just jump into that thing and hope for the best. There is precedent, Wednesday replied calmly. Though the survival rate is admittedly uninspiring. Harry turned to Hermione and Ron. We need you to hold this position. Keep anything else from coming through while we're gone. And how exactly do we do that? Ron asked. Disruptive magic, Hermione answered, already working through the problem. We can't close the breach, but we can make it unstable for incoming travelers. She turned to Wednesday. What affects Morrigan's creatures most effectively? Iron, salt, and paradoxes, Wednesday replied without hesitation. They exist in a state of quantum uncertainty, simultaneously material and energetic. Logical contradictions disrupt their cohesion. Hermione nodded, her expression determined. I can work with that. Luna's been experimenting with counterintuitive magic at the Department of Mysteries. Harry squeezed Ron's shoulder. We'll come back. With the grimoire and a way to stop Morrigan permanently. Ron sighed but nodded. Just, try not to get yourselves killed in another dimension, yeah. The paperwork would be a nightmare. Harry grinned, then turned to Wednesday, their bond vibrating with shared purpose and determination. Ready? She nodded once, taking his hand firmly in hers. For interdimensional suicide missions. Always. Together, they approached the swirling vortex. The magical wind whipped around them, growing stronger with each step toward the breach. Through their bond, Harry felt Wednesday calculating trajectories, visualizing the pocket dimension, focusing on the specific magical signature of the Adams repository. On 3, Harry said, raising his voice over the howling vortex. 1, 2, they leapt forward together, plunging into swirling chaos. The sensation was entirely different from traveling by flue or port key, more like being torn apart at a molecular level while simultaneously existing in multiple places at once. Harry's consciousness stretched painfully, and only the anchor of Wednesday's hand in his prevented him from being lost in the dimensional currents. Through their bond, he felt her mind, focused, calculating, navigating the chaotic streams of reality with surprising precision. She pulled them sideways in a way that made no physical sense, diverting from the main current toward a tributary of darker, more ancient magic. Follow the Adams line, her thoughts projected into his mind, more direct than their usual bond communication. Focus on the grimoire. Harry concentrated, adding his magical strength to hers, visualizing an ancient book of forbidden knowledge. Their combined intent altered their trajectory again, pulling them deeper into the darkness, away from the green-tinted currents that led to Morrigan. The disorientation peaked, then suddenly, blessedly, solid ground materialized beneath their feet. They stumbled forward, still clasping hands, into a space that defied conventional physics. They stood in what appeared to be an enormous library, though library seemed woefully inadequate to describe it. Bookshelves stretched in impossible directions, some running horizontally across empty space, others spiraling upward into infinity. Volumes of all sizes filled these shelves, some chained closed, others pulsing with visible energy, a few seemingly made of materials other than paper and leather. The repository, Wednesday breathed, her usual monotone tinged with genuine awe. I've read accounts, but experiencing it directly is Overwhelming, Harry finished, struggling to process the impossible architecture surrounding them. The repository existed in defiance of normal spatial rules. Staircases connected to nowhere, reading alcoves floated unsupported in midair, and corridors seemed to fold back on themselves in Escher-like impossibilities. The lighting came from nowhere and everywhere, casting no shadows yet illuminating everything perfectly. How do we find one specific book in this? Harry asked, gesturing at the infinite collection. Wednesday released his hand and approached the nearest shelf, running her fingers lightly over the spines. The repository responds to Adam's blood. It recognizes intent and need. She pressed her palm flat against a blank section of wall, and a small cut appeared on her skin, drawing blood without any visible cause. The blood didn't drip downward but instead flowed across the wall's surface, forming symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves continually. "Show us the original grimoire of binding," Wednesday commanded. The firstborn text of Morrigan Blackwood. The blood symbols flashed once, then dissolved into the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire repository shuddered, the impossible architecture reorganizing itself with a sound like mountains moving. Bookshelves slid, staircases reconnected, and corridors realigned until a single pedestal stood before them, bearing an ancient tome bound in what appeared to be human skin. "Efficient cataloging system," Wednesday commented, approaching the pedestal. Harry followed cautiously, wand ready. "This seems too easy." "The repository isn't designed to prevent access," Wednesday explained, reaching for the book. "It's designed to prevent escape with unauthorized knowledge." As her fingers touched the grimoire, the air around them shifted. The repository's neutral lighting took on a reddish tint, and the ambient temperature dropped noticeably. "I'm guessing that's bad," Harry observed, feeling the magical pressure building around them. "The trial has begun," Wednesday confirmed, lifting the grimoire from its pedestal. "The repository tests those who seek its most dangerous knowledge." The moment the book left the pedestal completely, the repository's transformation accelerated. Bookshelves began to close in around them, the impossible architecture now explicitly threatening as staircases crumbled and corridors sealed themselves off. "Run," Wednesday said calmly, tucking the grimoire under her arm. They sprinted toward the nearest exit, only to see it shrinking rapidly. Harry grabbed Wednesday's hand again, their bond flaring with shared power, and together they sent a blast of magic toward the closing gap. The energy struck the narrowing doorway, forcing it to temporarily widen. They leapt through just as it snapped closed behind them, finding themselves in a circular chamber with 12 identical doors. Each door bore a different symbol etched into its surface, symbols Harry recognized from the binding ritual. "This is new," Wednesday noted, examining the doors. "The repository is customizing its trial to our specific situation." Harry studied the symbols. "These match the stages of the ritual that bound us together." Wednesday nodded, opening the grimoire. The ancient pages seemed to turn themselves, stopping at a diagram that matched the chamber they stood in. "The 12 trials of binding," she read aloud. "To master the power of soul connections, one must pass through the gates of progressive unity. It's a test designed specifically for bound pairs. So we need to choose the correct door?" Harry asked. "We need to choose all of them, in the correct sequence," Wednesday corrected. "Each representing a deeper level of our bond." Harry approached the nearest door, examining its symbol, 2 separate circles, touching at a single point. "This must be the first stage. Physical connection." Wednesday joined him, her shoulder brushing against his. "The initial tethering that prevents physical separation." Harry reached for the handle, but Wednesday stopped him. "Wait. The repository tests worthiness through trial. Each door likely contains a challenge related to its stage of bonding. So behind this one." Harry began. "A physical challenge," Wednesday confirmed. "Something that tests our ability to coordinate our movements while maintaining the bond." She was proven correct moments after they opened the door. Beyond the threshold lay not another room, but what appeared to be an enormous chasm. A narrow, crumbling bridge spanned the gap, barely wide enough for one person. Far below, something moved in shadow, shapes with too many limbs and gleaming eyes. "Charming," Wednesday commented. Harry examined the bridge. "It won't support both of us walking side by side. And our bond still has physical limitations," Wednesday added. "We can't separate beyond 50 feet without pain." They studied the challenge, communicating silently through their connection. The solution became clear almost simultaneously. "Back to back," Harry suggested. Wednesday nodded. "Maximum stability with minimum width." They positioned themselves back to back at the bridge's entrance, linking arms at the elbow. Moving as a single unit, they began to edge sideways across the narrow span. Each step required perfect coordination. When Harry moved his right foot, Wednesday moved her left, maintaining their balance through constant adjustment and feedback. The bridge crumbled further with each step, pieces falling into the darkness below. The creatures there grew more excited, reaching upward with elongated limbs that fell just short of the bridge. "Don't look down," Harry advised as they reached the halfway point. "Acrophobia is illogical when one is already in the process of falling," Wednesday replied, though Harry felt her grip on his arms tighten slightly. They continued their careful progress, the bridge disintegrating just steps behind them. When they finally reached the other side, the last section collapsed entirely, leaving no way back. "First trial complete," Wednesday noted as a new door materialized before them, bearing the next symbol, 2 circles with a small overlap between them. "Memory sharing," Harry identified. "The second stage of our bond." This door opened to reveal what appeared to be a maze made entirely of mirrors. Each reflective surface showed not their current selves, but moments from their pasts, Harry confronting Voldemort, Wednesday performing dark rituals, both of them experiencing pivotal moments of their lives. "A memory labyrinth," Wednesday observed. "We need to navigate using our shared experiences rather than visual cues. The reflections will try to mislead us," Harry added, watching as one mirror showed him a false path that he recognized from a similar trick in the Triwizard Tournament. They entered the maze carefully, each mirror they passed displaying more memories, some Harry recognized as his own, others Wednesday's, many they had experienced through their bond's memory-sharing capability. Some were true recollections, others subtly altered to mislead them. "There," Wednesday said, pointing to a mirror showing her performing the binding ritual that had summoned Harry. "That memory is accurate." They followed the path indicated by the true memories, rejecting the false ones through their shared knowledge of each other's pasts. When a mirror showed Harry defeating Voldemort single-handedly without his friend's help, they turned away. When another displayed Wednesday expressing cheerful optimism at summer camp, they recognized the deception immediately. The maze grew more challenging as they progressed, the false memories becoming more subtly altered, requiring deeper access to their shared recollections. Harry found himself instinctively reaching for Wednesday's hand, strengthening their connection to better distinguish truth from deception. Finally, they reached the maze's center, where a single mirror stood showing them as they were in the present moment, the first true reflection they'd encountered. As they approached it, the mirror dissolved, revealing the third door. This one bore the symbol of 2 circles with significant overlap, emotional resonance, the third stage they had already experienced in their bond. "This should be interesting," Harry murmured as they opened the door. Beyond lay what appeared to be a normal room with 2 chairs facing each other. Nothing seemed immediately threatening or challenging. "Suspicious," Wednesday commented as they entered cautiously. The door sealed behind them, and words appeared on the wall, "To proceed, reveal what remains hidden." Harry frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "The emotional resonance test," Wednesday deduced. "Our bond allows us to feel each other's emotions, but we both maintain certain barriers, emotions we suppress or hide." Harry nodded slowly. He could feel Wednesday's constant emotional control through their bond, the feelings she acknowledged but deliberately contained behind mental walls. "So we have to, what? Confess our deepest feelings?" he asked, uncomfortable with the concept. More likely, we need to lower all emotional barriers between us, Wednesday replied, looking equally unenthused. Complete emotional transparency. They sat in the chairs facing each other, knees almost touching. Harry took a deep breath, meeting Wednesday's dark eyes. Ladies first, he suggested with a nervous smile. She raised an eyebrow. Chivalry is a patriarchal construct designed to disguise functional subjugation as respect. Despite the tension, Harry laughed. Fine. I'll start. He closed his eyes, focusing on the emotional barriers he maintained, the walls built during years of war and loss, reinforced by aura training and the need to appear strong for others. Carefully, deliberately, he began lowering them. Through their bond, Wednesday felt the change immediately. Harry's carefully controlled fear, not of Morrigan or physical danger, but of failing those who depended on him, of not being enough, flowed into their connection. Deeper still, his loneliness despite being surrounded by friends, his exhaustion with being the chosen one even years after Voldemort's defeat. And beneath it all, something newer, his growing attachment to Wednesday herself, the unexpected connection he felt with someone who saw him simply as Harry, not as a hero or a legend. Harry opened his eyes to find Wednesday watching him with an intensity that would have been unnerving from anyone else. Through their bond, he felt her struggling with the concept of reciprocating such emotional openness. Your turn, he said softly. Wednesday sat perfectly still for a long moment. Then, with visible effort, she began dismantling her own emotional walls. The feelings that flowed through their bond nearly overwhelmed Harry with their intensity. Beneath Wednesday's carefully maintained monotone and expressionless exterior lay emotions of astonishing depth, a lifetime of isolation, of being feared and misunderstood, of finding refuge in darkness and macabre interests because they were at least honest about life's realities. He felt her fierce intelligence constantly analyzing everything, including her own emotions, creating a recursive loop of feeling and meta-feeling that was dizzying in its complexity. He felt her reluctant but growing attachment to him, the first person who had accepted her exactly as she was, darkness and all. And deeper still, something Wednesday herself had barely acknowledged, fear. Not of death or danger, which she approached with clinical detachment, but of the bond breaking, of returning to complete emotional isolation after experiencing true connection. Their shared emotions created a feedback loop, amplifying and resonating until the distinction between Harry's feelings and Wednesday's blurred completely. For several breathtaking moments, they existed in perfect emotional synchronicity, each fully experiencing the other's inner world. The words on the wall glowed brightly, then faded, replaced by, truth acknowledged. Proceed. A third door appeared, bearing the symbol of two circles almost completely overlapped, the final stage of their bond, complete magical synchronization. They stood together, both slightly shaken by the depth of emotional connection they had just experienced. Neither spoke of it directly, but their bond hummed with new understanding and awareness. The fourth door opened to reveal what appeared to be a combat arena. In its center stood a perfect replica of Morrigan, though Harry could sense it was a construct rather than the witch herself. The final trial, Wednesday observed. Complete magical unity against our primary adversary. The Morrigan construct raised its hands, dark energy gathering around its fingers just as the real witch had done. Bound pairs, it intoned in a perfect imitation of Morrigan's voice. Your combined essence calls to me. Charming hospitality, Harry muttered, raising his wand. The repository doesn't believe in participation trophies, Wednesday replied, moving to stand beside him. The construct attacked without further warning, sending a wave of corrupted magic toward them. Harry and Wednesday responded instinctively, their hands joining as they created a shield of combined silver-black energy. Unlike their previous battles, however, the construct adapted instantly, its attack morphing to target the specific frequency of their shield. The dark energy pierced their defense, sending them staggering backward. It's learning, Wednesday noted, recovering her balance. Analyzing our combined magic and developing counters. Then we need to evolve faster than it can adapt, Harry replied, an idea forming. Complete synchronization, not just combining our magics, but truly merging them into something new. Wednesday understood immediately. Through their enhanced bond, she projected her thoughts directly, the emotional connection from the previous trial. We maintain it while casting. Harry nodded. They faced the construct again, but this time instead of simply joining hands, they positioned themselves back to back, maintaining physical contact along the full length of their bodies. They each extended one arm outward, Harry's wand and Wednesday's open palm aligned with their opposite shoulders, creating a circuit of magical energy. Drawing on their newly deepened emotional connection, they synchronized not just their magic but their very consciousness, thinking, feeling, and casting as a single entity rather than two individuals working together. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The silver-black energy of their combined magic shifted, blending into a new color that seemed to exist somewhere between dimensions, not quite silver, not quite black, but something that the human eye struggled to process. This new energy surrounded them in a perfect sphere, then extended outward in precise tendrils that struck the construct from multiple angles simultaneously. The Morrigan construct shrieked, its form destabilizing under this new, perfectly synchronized attack. It attempted to adapt, shifting its own magical frequency, but Harry and Wednesday adjusted instantly, their merged consciousness allowing them to evolve their magic faster than the construct could analyze it. The battle intensified, the construct growing more desperate as it failed to counter their attacks. It split into multiple copies, surrounding them with identical Morrigans, each attacking from a different direction. Harry and Wednesday remained in perfect synchronization, their magic expanding outward in all directions. They no longer needed to see their targets, they could feel them through their enhanced magical awareness, striking with precision that transcended normal human limitations. One by one, the constructs dissolved under their attacks, unable to match the perfect unity of their fully realized bond. When the last copy fell, the arena itself began to dissolve, the repository acknowledging their victory. A new door appeared, larger than the others, bearing not a symbol but words in an ancient language. The way forward, Wednesday translated. For those worthy of the knowledge. They approached the door together, the grimoire still tucked securely under Wednesday's arm. When they touched the handle, they felt the repository's final judgment washing over them, testing not just their power or their bond, but their intentions. The door swung open, revealing not another trial but a swirling portal similar to the one they had entered through. Beyond it, they could see glimpses of the death chamber in the Department of Mysteries. "We did it," Harry said, surprised at how straightforward their exit appeared. "The trial was never about escaping with the grimoire," Wednesday replied. "It was about proving we could use its knowledge responsibly." They stood before the portal, the original grimoire of binding secure in their possession. Through their enhanced bond, they could feel Morrigan's growing presence on the other side, closer now to breaking through into Harry's world. "Ready for round 2 with an ancient soul-eating witch?" Harry asked with a grim smile. "I can think of no more appropriate conclusion to an interdimensional field trip," Wednesday replied, her deadpan delivery belied by the determination flowing through their bond. They stepped through the portal together, the repository vanishing behind them as they emerged back into the death chamber. The scene that greeted them was one of barely contained chaos. Ron and Hermione stood with their backs to the chamber door, wands raised as they maintained a complex barrier spell. Luna Lovegood had joined them, her wand creating patterns in the air that seemed to confuse and disorient the white creatures attempting to breach their defenses. Several unspeakables lay unconscious against the walls, and the stone archway had cracked further, the vortex within it now pulsing with malevolent energy. "Harry!" Hermione cried, spotting them first. "Thank goodness. Did you get it?" Ron shouted over the magical wind that howled around the chamber. Harry held up the grimoire in answer as they hurried to join their friends. "Perfect timing," Luna commented serenely, as if they'd arrived for tea rather than an interdimensional battle. "Our paradox field is failing, and I believe something rather large is coming through." As if on cue, the vortex expanded dramatically, the archway crumbling further under the magical pressure. A figure began to materialize within the swirling energy, tall, elegant, and radiating ancient power. Morrigan had arrived. She stepped fully into the chamber, her form more solid and defined than they had ever seen it. She appeared neither young nor old but in a perfect state of ageless power, her long black hair moving as if underwater, her eyes glowing with stolen energy. "The bound pair returns," she observed, her voice echoing unnaturally. "With my grimoire, no less. How considerate of you to bring it directly to me." Harry and Wednesday moved forward together, positioning themselves between Morrigan and their friends. Through their enhanced bond, they maintained the perfect synchronization they had achieved in the repository. "The grimoire doesn't belong to you anymore," Harry said, his wand raised. "You corrupted its purpose." "I created its purpose," Morrigan corrected, her eyes narrowing. "That book is my life's work, written in my blood and bound in the skin of my enemies." "Then perhaps you should read it more carefully," Wednesday suggested, opening the grimoire to a specific page. "Particularly the section on the true purpose of soul binding." Morrigan's expression flickered with uncertainty for the first time. "I know my own creation better than any living being." "Do you?" Wednesday challenged. "Or have centuries of corruption and soul consumption distorted your understanding of what you originally created?" She held the grimoire open, displaying a page containing diagrams of two souls joining in perfect balance. "You designed the ritual to heal, not harm. To create perfect magical balance between complementary souls. To save Darien," Harry added softly. "Not to consume others in his place." Morrigan's composure cracked slightly at the mention of her lost love. "Do not speak his name. You know nothing of what I lost." "We know everything," Wednesday countered. "We saw your memories in the dream space our bond created. We felt your grief. And we understand your corruption wasn't entirely your fault," Harry continued. "The ritual backlashed when it failed, twisting your original intent." Morrigan laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "And you think this understanding will save you? I've consumed dozens of bound pairs across centuries. Your compassion is touching but ultimately irrelevant." She raised her hands, gathering corrupted energy that crackled with the stolen power of countless soul bonds. The white creatures that had emerged from the vortex formed a circle around her, their two wide mouths opened in silent screams. "We're not offering compassion," Harry said, his voice hardening. "We're offering a choice. Redemption or dissolution," Wednesday elaborated. "The grimoire contains both." With perfect coordination, they opened the grimoire to its final pages, where Morrigan herself had written the ultimate failsafe, a ritual specifically designed to unmake what had been corrupted beyond repair. Recognizing what they intended, Morrigan attacked. Her gathered energy shot toward them in a wave of sickly green power, similar to the killing curse but vastly more ancient and primal. Harry and Wednesday didn't attempt to dodge or block. Instead, they channeled their perfectly synchronized magic through the grimoire itself, using the book's original power as both shield and weapon. The ancient tome absorbed Morrigan's attack, its pages glowing with contained energy. "Impossible," Morrigan breathed, genuine fear crossing her face for the first time. "The grimoire cannot be turned against its creator." "It's not being turned against you," Harry explained, maintaining his focus on their combined magic. "It's being restored to its original purpose. As are you," Wednesday added. "Whether you wish it or not." Together, they began reciting the words written on the grimoire's final page, an incantation in the same ancient language as the repository's door. As they spoke, the grimoire rose from their hands, hovering between them and Morrigan, its pages turning rapidly of their own accord. The white creatures surrounding Morrigan shrieked and dissolved, unable to maintain their corrupted existence in the presence of the original magic that was never meant to create them. Morrigan herself seemed to flicker, her form becoming less substantial as the grimoire's power intensified. "Stop this," she commanded, attempting to counter with her own magic. "I am Morrigan Blackwood. I have survived centuries." "You've existed," Wednesday corrected, her voice merging with Harry's as they continued the incantation. "But you haven't lived. Not since Darien died." The grimoire began to glow with blinding intensity, centuries of corrupted magic being purified by the original words of its creation. Morrigan fought against its pull, but the power of the book she herself had created proved stronger than even her centuries of accumulated energy. "I won't go back to nothing," she cried, her voice losing its unnatural echo, becoming almost human in its desperation. "I can't bear it again, the emptiness, the loss." Harry felt a pang of sympathy despite everything Morrigan had done. Through their bond, he sensed Wednesday felt it too, a recognition of the genuine love that had motivated Morrigan's original actions before grief corrupted her purpose. The final words of the incantation hung in the air as Harry and Wednesday finished speaking in perfect unison. The grimoire's glow reached its peak, enveloping Morrigan completely. For a moment, time seemed to stop. In the heart of the light surrounding Morrigan, a second figure appeared briefly, a young man with kind eyes, extending his hand toward her. Darien, as he had been in life, offering the peace Morrigan had sought for centuries. Morrigan's expression transformed, rage and bitterness giving way to recognition, then wonder, and finally a peace that had eluded her for hundreds of years. She reached for Darien's hand, their fingers touching within the brilliant light. "Thank you," her voice whispered, barely audible as her form began to dissolve not into nothingness, but into pure, uncorrupted magical energy. "For remembering what I forgot." The light intensified one final time, then collapsed inward with a sound like a gentle sigh. When it faded, both Morrigan and the grimoire were gone, leaving behind only a small silver locket, the one containing Darien's portrait, and a single page from the book, floating gently to the stone floor. The vortex in the archway pulsed once more, then collapsed, the tear between dimensions sealing itself. The ancient stone arch, damaged beyond repair, crumbled completely, leaving only rubble where the veil had stood for millennia. Silence fell over the death chamber, broken only by the sounds of heavy breathing and the distant magical alarm still blaring throughout the department. "Bloody hell," Ron finally said, lowering his wand. What did you just do?" Wednesday knelt to pick up the remaining page and the locket. "We fulfilled the grimoire's true purpose," she explained, examining the artifacts. "Perfect balance between creation and dissolution. Morrigan created the ritual to save Darien through balanced soul energy," Harry added, joining her. "When that failed, both she and the ritual became corrupted. By using the original, uncorrupted magic against that corruption," Hermione reasoned, her quick mind following their explanation, "you essentially reset both Morrigan and the grimoire to their original state. And since the original state of Morrigan was as a mortal witch who lived centuries ago," Luna continued dreamily, "she returned to where she belonged," Wednesday finished. "With Darien." The single remaining page contained a simplified version of the binding ritual, cleansed of the corruption that had tainted it for centuries. The diagram showed two souls in perfect balance, neither dominating nor consuming the other, but existing in harmonious complementary resonance. "What about you two?" Hermione asked carefully. "Your bond, is it still?" Harry and Wednesday exchanged glances, communicating silently through their connection. They had been too occupied with Morrigan's defeat to fully process the changes to their own bond, but now they could feel the difference. The silver-black energy that connected them had transformed during the final confrontation, becoming something more refined, more balanced. "It's changed," Harry confirmed. "But it's still there." The grimoire's dissolution cleansed the corruption from all soul bonds created by the ritual, Wednesday explained. "Including ours. But it didn't break them." "So you're still stuck together?" Ron asked bluntly. "Not stuck," Harry corrected. "Connected. But differently than before." He could feel the change through their bond, the forced physical tethering had disappeared completely. They could now separate as far as they wished without pain. But the deeper connection, the emotional resonance and magical synchronization, remained intact, though transformed into something more natural and balanced. "We have a choice now," Wednesday said, holding up the single remaining page. "This contains the knowledge to maintain our bond or to dissolve it completely." Before any further discussion could occur, Kingsley and a team of Aurors burst into the chamber, wands raised. "Potter! Report," the minister commanded, taking in the destroyed archway and the exhausted group. "Threat neutralized, sir," Harry replied automatically. "Dimensional breach closed. The veil is, well, gone." Kingsley stared at the rubble where the ancient artifact had stood for countless generations. "The unspeakables are going to have my head," he muttered. "And probably yours too, Potter." "To be fair, Minister," Hermione interjected, "the veil was an unstable dimensional tear that had been inadequately contained for centuries. This outcome was statistically inevitable." "I'll be sure to include that in my report to the Wisengamot," Kingsley replied dryly. He gestured to the remaining Aurors to secure the chamber and check on the unconscious unspeakables. "I expect a full debriefing from all of you. After medical attention," he added, noting their various injuries and exhausted state. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity, healers treating their wounds, unspeakables documenting the destruction of the veil, and preliminary debriefings that raised more questions than they answered. Through it all, Harry and Wednesday remained close, processing the implications of their transformed bond through silent communication. It was nearly dawn when they finally returned to Harry's flat, accompanied by Ron and Hermione, who were reluctant to leave them after such an ordeal. Luna had remained at the Department of Mysteries, fascinated by the magical residue left by Morrigan's defeat. "Tea? Or something stronger?" Harry offered as they collapsed onto his living room furniture. "Both," Ron suggested. "Mixed together, preferably." Hermione conjured cups and a steaming teapot with a wave of her wand. "So what happens now?" she asked, addressing the question they had all been avoiding. Harry and Wednesday sat side by side on the sofa, the single page from the grimoire and Morrigan's locket on the coffee table before them. "We have options," Wednesday said, her usual monotone softened by exhaustion. "The cleansed ritual allows for maintaining the bond across dimensions without corruption or forced tethering." "Meaning you could return to your world," Hermione concluded, "and still maintain your connection with Harry." Wednesday nodded. "Distance would affect the bond's strength but not sever it completely." "Or?" Ron prompted, sensing there was more. "Or we could dissolve it entirely," Harry said quietly. "Return to our separate lives in separate dimensions as if none of this had happened." A heavy silence fell over the room. Through their bond, Harry felt Wednesday's carefully controlled emotions, her logical mind analyzing all possibilities while her deeper feelings remained characteristically guarded. "What do you want to do?" Hermione asked gently. Harry looked at Wednesday, a wealth of unspoken communication passing between them. The bond had changed them both, Harry finding unexpected understanding with someone who saw past his famous name, Wednesday experiencing connection with someone who accepted her darkness without fear. "We haven't decided," Harry answered honestly. "Perhaps," Wednesday suggested, "we should test the transformed bond before making permanent decisions." Harry nodded, understanding her meaning. "You want to return to your world temporarily. See how the bond functions across dimensions." "A logical experiment," she confirmed. "Data before conclusions." Ron shook his head with a tired smile. "Only you two would treat a magical soul bond like a science project." "Magic and science differ only in terminology and historical context," Wednesday replied seriously. "Both require methodical investigation." Hermione yawned widely, the night's events catching up with her. "Whatever you decide, it should probably wait until we've all had some sleep. Interdimensional travel decisions are best not made while sleep-deprived." No one could argue with that logic. Ron and Hermione eventually departed for their own home, leaving Harry and Wednesday alone in the quiet flat. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both processing the events of the past days. Their bond hummed between them, cleansed of corruption but still powerful, still unique. "Your friends are surprisingly adaptable," Wednesday observed eventually. "Interdimensional visitors, soul bonds, ancient witches, they accept it all with remarkable equanimity." Harry laughed softly. "After 7 years of being friends with me, they've developed a high tolerance for the bizarre. Though I think you still managed to unnerve Ron. A minor accomplishment, Wednesday replied, though Harry felt her amusement through their bond. Your godson Teddy was more resilient. He merely asked if I could teach him to make things explode with his mind. Harry smiled, remembering Wednesday's meeting with Teddy the previous day. The young metamorphmagus had been instantly fascinated by her macabre knowledge and deadpan delivery, showing none of the fear adults often exhibited around Wednesday. Children recognize authenticity, Wednesday had explained afterward. They haven't yet been fully conditioned to fear the unusual. Now, as dawn light began filtering through the windows, they turned their attention to the page from the grimoire and the decision it represented. When would you want to attempt the return journey? Harry asked, sensing Wednesday's thoughts turning in that direction. Soon, she replied. My family will be concerned, and I've left several experiments unfinished. The reanimated frog in my laboratory has likely achieved sentience by now, which presents both ethical and practical concerns. Harry nodded, unsurprised by this casual mention of potentially catastrophic magical experimentation. It was so essentially Wednesday that he couldn't help but smile. We could try tomorrow, he suggested. The Department of Mysteries owes us a favor after we cleaned up their dimensional breach. And prevented their employees from being consumed by an ancient soul-eating witch, Wednesday added. Though that was technically a self-interested action on our part. Harry reached for her hand, their bond brightening at the physical contact. Whatever we decide about the bond, he said seriously, I'm glad the ritual chose you. Wednesday's expression remained neutral, but through their connection, Harry felt her emotion, a complex mixture of gratitude, affection, and her own unique form of attachment that defied conventional labels. The ritual chose well, she acknowledged simply. For both of us. 3 days later, they stood in a specially prepared chamber in the Department of Mysteries. Unspeakables had constructed a controlled dimensional portal based on their descriptions of the Threshold Stone from Nevermore Academy, combined with the cleansed ritual page from Morrigan's grimoire. Hermione, Ron, Luna, and Kingsley were present as witnesses and support. The portal itself glowed with gentle silver light, nothing like the corrupted green energy of Morrigan's breach or the tainted red of the original binding ritual. The pathway is stable, confirmed Croker, who had personally overseen the portal's creation. It should connect directly to the corresponding location in Ms. Adams' dimension. The Nevermore catacombs, Wednesday specified. An appropriate symmetry. She had packed lightly for the journey, a small black suitcase containing the few possessions she'd acquired during her stay in Harry's world, plus several books Hermione had insisted she take as interdimensional cultural exchange. The portal will remain accessible from both sides for approximately 1 week, Croker explained. After that, maintaining it would require more energy than the department can safely generate. Harry nodded, understanding the implications. They had 1 week to test their bond across dimensions and make their final decision. Are you ready? He asked Wednesday quietly. She nodded, her expression characteristically impassive though Harry could feel her anticipation through their bond. A journey for scientific inquiry. Though I admit to some curiosity about how Thing has managed in my absence. Goodbyes were brief, Wednesday wasn't one for emotional farewells, and their friends understood this wasn't necessarily a permanent separation. Hermione hugged her anyway, whispering something that made Wednesday's eyebrow rise slightly in what Harry had come to recognize as surprised appreciation. Take care of yourself, Adams, Ron said awkwardly, settling for a handshake. Try not to resurrect anything dangerous without Harry around to help clean up the mess. An unnecessarily limiting restriction, Wednesday replied, but I appreciate the sentiment. Luna presented her with a strange amulet made of bottle caps and feathers. To help you see the blibbering humdingers in your dimension, she explained seriously. They might have different coloration there. Wednesday accepted the gift with surprising grace. I'll document any variations meticulously. Finally, it was Harry's turn. They stood facing each other before the portal, their bond humming with shared awareness of the moment's significance. 1 week, he confirmed. Then we decide. Wednesday nodded. A sufficient experimental period. They didn't embrace or make flowery speeches, neither was inclined toward such displays. Instead, Harry simply squeezed her hand once, feeling the silver-black energy of their bond pulse strongly between them. "Safe travels, Wednesday Addams," he said softly. "Try not to get yourself killed while I'm gone," she replied, her tone dry but her emotions betraying genuine concern. "I've invested considerable time in this partnership." With that characteristically Wednesday statement, she turned and stepped through the portal. The silver light enveloped her, her form becoming translucent for a moment before disappearing completely. The portal remained active, humming with dimensional energy, a doorway now connecting two worlds. Harry felt the change in their bond immediately. The connection stretched like an elastic band, thinning but not breaking as Wednesday traveled to her own dimension. He could still sense her, a distant presence in his mind, emotions muted but detectable, magic attenuated but connected. "She made it," he confirmed to the others. "The bond is holding." "Fascinating," Croker murmured, taking readings with various magical instruments. "The first documented case of a sustained interdimensional magical connection. The research possibilities are extraordinary." "She's not a research subject," Harry reminded him firmly. "Of course not," Croker agreed quickly, though his eyes remained fixed on his instruments. "Merely an observation on the theoretical implications." The group dispersed gradually, leaving Harry alone with the portal. He stood watching its silver light pulse gently, feeling Wednesday through their stretched bond as she reoriented herself in her own world. He sensed her surprise, followed by what felt like amusement, likely her reunion with her family or friends. 1 week to test the distance, to experience life connected but separate, to decide whether to maintain what they had created together or return to their independent existences. Harry turned finally and left the chamber, the decision weighing on his mind but his heart surprisingly light. Whatever they chose, he knew one thing with certainty: the ritual had indeed fulfilled its true purpose. It had created perfect balance between two souls who, against all logic and probability, complemented each other exactly as they were meant to. The week passed both quickly and slowly. Harry returned to his aura duties, explaining his dimensional adventure to increasingly bewildered colleagues. The prophet ran wild speculations about his disappearance and return, most so fantastical that they made the actual truth seem tame by comparison. Through it all, the bond remained, a silver-black thread connecting him across dimensions to Wednesday. Each day, he found he could sense more through their connection as they both adapted to the new distance. Emotions came through more clearly, occasionally even fragments of thoughts or sensations. He felt Wednesday's reunion with her family, their unique blend of concern and appreciation for her interdimensional misadventure. He sensed her return to Nevermore Academy, the confrontation with Principal Weems: "Your unauthorized absence has broken 17 school regulations." Only 17. I must be losing my touch, and her reunion with Enid, Xavier, and Bianca. In return, he knew she could feel his experiences, the mundane routines of paperwork and training, dinners at the Burrow, visiting Teddy, rebuilding his normal life with this new, extraordinary connection humming in the background of his consciousness. On the 7th day, Harry returned to the Department of Mysteries. The portal glowed just as it had when Wednesday departed, the silver light pulsing gently as if in time with their heartbeats. Croker approached, various scrolls of data in his arms. "Mr. Potter. Right on schedule. Any changes to the portal?" Harry asked, though he could feel through the bond that Wednesday was already preparing for her return journey, or at least a journey, whether returning permanently or just visiting remained undecided. "Stable and functioning at optimal parameters," Croker confirmed. "Though it will begin degrading after midnight as predicted." Harry nodded, positioning himself before the portal. His friends had offered to be present, but he had declined. This moment felt private, regardless of the outcome. Through their bond, he sensed Wednesday approaching her side of the portal. Her emotions were characteristically controlled, but he could detect the undercurrent of anticipation she wouldn't verbally acknowledge. The portal's light intensified, responding to her presence on the other side. Harry took a deep breath, centered himself, and waited. A figure began to materialize in the silver light, not just Wednesday, but two figures. She stepped through accompanied by a disembodied hand walking on its fingers. Thing insisted on accompanying me, she explained without preamble, as if continuing a conversation they'd been having moments before. He developed an unhealthy fascination with British tea customs during my absence. Thing gave what appeared to be a thumbs-up of agreement. Harry smiled, both at Wednesday's characteristic entrance and at the flood of connection that surged through their bond as the dimensional distance closed. Welcome back. Both of you. Wednesday looked exactly as she had when she left, black dress, pale skin, penetrating dark eyes that missed nothing. Yet Harry sensed subtle changes through their bond, a week of reflection and experience that had shifted something in her perspective. The experimental period proved informative, she stated, setting down her suitcase. Thing immediately scurried over to investigate Harry's bookshelf. And what did you conclude? Harry asked, though he could feel her decision forming through their bond, mirroring his own. That distance is irrelevant to the essential nature of our connection, she replied. The bond functions across dimensions, maintaining its integrity while allowing independent existence. Harry nodded, understanding the implications. So we don't have to choose between togetherness and separation. We can have both. Precisely. A quantum state of connected independence. Wednesday's expression remained neutral, but through their bond, Harry felt her satisfaction with this solution. I've made arrangements at Nevermore for periodic absences. Principal Weems was surprisingly accommodating once Mother explained the situation. And I've spoken with Kingsley about a flexible work schedule, Harry added. International, or interdimensional, magical cooperation falls under my department anyway. A convenient bureaucratic classification, Wednesday observed. They stood looking at each other, the silver-black energy of their bond visible now to both of them, a tangible manifestation of their unique connection, cleansed of corruption and fully realized. So we're decided? Harry asked. Maintain the bond, travel between worlds as needed? Wednesday nodded once. A logical arrangement that optimizes both collective and individual benefit. Harry smiled, recognizing this as Wednesday's way of expressing satisfaction. In that case, would you and Thing like to join me for dinner? I promised Hermione and Ron we'd update them on the decision. Acceptable, Wednesday agreed. Though I should warn you that Thing has developed a tendency to rearrange silverware into disturbing tableaus when bored. As if to demonstrate, the disembodied hand performed a cartwheel across the floor, landing with a theatrical flourish. I think they can handle it, Harry laughed. After soul-eating witches and interdimensional travel, a disembodied hand with artistic tendencies seems almost ordinary. Ordinary, Wednesday repeated, testing the word. Not a concept I generally aspire to. Trust me, Harry said, offering her his arm with a smile, nothing about this arrangement could ever be considered ordinary. Wednesday accepted his arm, the contact sending a pleasant surge through their bond. In that case, I find it satisfactory. Together, they left the Department of Mysteries, the portal humming behind them, no longer needed to maintain their connection, but remaining as a bridge between worlds that had brought together the most unlikely of companions. A boy who lived and a girl who embraced death, bound by shadows but walking in balance, their silver-black magic a perfect harmony of opposites united. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.